Says we got 13 participants today.
Okay.
Come on. So I guess I got fat finger syndrome here. Yossi, you're here, right? Yeah. Daniel, Danny B? No, Danny B. Shaheem? Where is Shaheem? Oh, there you go. Cool. Okay. Remember, stay visible. Mercedes, thank you very much. Aubrey? No Aubrey yet? All right. We still gotta give her notes about her menu. She's turning a little bit late. Raceling, and that's, yeah, there you go.
Shaheem, put your jacket on, please.
Mallory, yep. No Austin. So Miss Hannah. So James. Where's my troublemaker?
I'm right here.
All right.
I just spilled Red Bull on my jacket, so I had to change it.
Like I said, troublemaker. Nick's not here yet. Daniel Rodriguez, I don't see him.
Andre, you there?
Come on, Dr. Dre.
Yeah, I'm here, Chef. It's just my my camera on my phone. I'm on my phone right now, so I'm here though.
Caitlin, I see you. Didn't I see Kristen earlier? Oh, there he goes.
There I am.
And Cam, no Cam?
Got a text from Cam. He'll be a little bit late.
Okay,
Appointment or something. Pulling him up a little bit.
cool. All right, so we got, just to make sure, Danny B, Aubrey, Usual Suspect Austin, Nick, Daniel Rodriguez, and Cam. Cool. Was that Cam? There's someone say here.
Haven't seen Cam yet. Steph, you got Nick?
No, no Nick.
Okay. No Daniel Rodriguez.
Huh.
No Cam. Okay. No Austin.
They don't join today, they're gonna miss out because I got some stuff for you guys.
No Aubrey. Okay, I see. Mercedes is here. Right. Right.
All right.
Thanks for being here on Friday night, you guys. I know that weekends here it might be nice, relaxed, but you know, just got to hang in a couple hours here.
So again, what we gotta do, right? It's all about knowledge. Filling your head with knowledge, passing what we have, what we know, on to you guys. As of yesterday, when everybody left, Chef Gary and I, we're talking after the meeting was over, and even though that we have been in this industry for such a long time, and at different times and at different places in time, we speak the same language. Because he was talking yesterday. I don't know if you guys caught it about how to have that spreadsheet with clipboard and the meat cage, how to take inventory and so forth, so on. And here you go, right? I share with you guys that spreadsheet. And again, I told you guys at the beginning, I love spreadsheets. So we speak the same language, even though it has been 20 plus years since I've created this structure, this systems and spreadsheets, the ones you guys have now. The same rules apply. It's not just because they're 20 years old, they're classic, oldie but goodies. They still apply to the same principles. It's all about how you structure, you organize your kitchens, your system, your flow of goods, your labors, your forecast. All that is still applies. That has not changed. What has changed is technology and how do you guys go about and adapting and making sure you grab what we give you guys, share with you guys, grab it and run with it and evolve to your best needs. And I guarantee you, my words, that information is going to come in handy. You are going to be the food and beverage. You are going to be the executive chef, the pastry chef, the owner, and you're going to think back and say, I remember having to do a practice this in school a while ago. Even if you don't, when you walk into a restaurant, it is our gift and it's our curse to walk in there and start automatically thinking numbers, not just about the food. The food is what drives us, our passion and our palate, and what we look forward. But as soon as I sit there, numbers will start flowing in. You start looking at the menu, dissecting it. You start looking at the server up and down. You start looking at the establishment, sizing it up, and see if it's something that you might want to have, or you start criticizing. It's going to be there forever, good or bad, and everything. So, anyways, just share with you guys that we speak the same language. Okay, we've been around the block for quite a while, and we're talking yesterday, and like he was asking about all the information. And look, okay, thumb drives.
Thumb drives.
Every place that I worked, every structure, every system that I created, I saved it, I implemented, kept it, and left it behind for others to come and use. I'm not the one that grabs it and erases everything. I leave it behind because as the kind of person I am, I like to share. I don't like to huddle my recipes and nobody, watch them. So
those are all hard drives from previous places you worked?
Uh-huh.
What?
Yep. 36 years and counting. And those are thumb drives from all the places that I worked at. Some of them are 2, 8, 16, 32, 256, whatever. Okay.
What do they consist of? Like recipes, files,
menus, pictures, recipes.
All that stuff has been shown you guys, right? Yeah.
Top secret information.
Everything that has been passed on to you guys is on those hard drives. Okay. So again, we speak the same language, and now we're passing it on to you guys, making sure you guys understand it, able to read it, able to use it to your advantage. And when you come across a certain institution, you guys are better prepared and can handle certain projects and challenges better to your expertise. So we want to make sure that you guys are successful for the future. Okay. So we're going to be talking about labor, forecast, how to control it. Anybody watched that video yesterday? It was very short. It was very, very short. What do you guys think about it?
Yeah, robbing the time is, I guess, riding the clock is definitely a common thing and something people overlook. It's I've been there where I've had managers tell me like, oh, we need to get this guy out of here. He's riding the clock, send him home for the day. Like I didn't think I was. I was staying busy the whole time, but I've been around that and been around people that definitely take advantage of it.
Yeah, that's what's problematic is you have people, hourly people who will take advantage of things and ride the clock, who really will do that. And sometimes you have managers who make that stuff up. If the guy's not in a full rolling sweat all the time, the manager could decide, oh, he's riding the clock, when in fact he has a lot of work to do. And there are a lot of managers, kind of not professional managers, that sort of take advantage of the, kind of hide behind the whole labor cost thing, and run somebody off, cut their hours, and then the later shift coming in has to deal with all the stuff that didn't get done. So it's really important to be a professional manager, be serious with it, and not be the kid that's just trying to make his money and make his boss look good and stuff like that at the expense of getting the job done right. Chef, I know you've got a lot of experience, and you'll have some things to say on that. It's for sure. It's an issue.
We call those slave drivers, unfortunately, because they will overload you with productivity and they expect you to get it done within a certain amount of time.
Here, Chef. I just got home from work.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. Anyways, they will load. By the way, Ms. Aubrey, we're gonna hopefully give you some feedback on your menu tonight when everything's done. I know you submitted it a little late. We got it and we looked at it. I looked at it yesterday, but I'm gonna give you some feedback tonight after the class done. Okay, so you hang out a few minutes late. Anyways, slave drivers, because they will overload you with productivity. If they see you that you can handle more than when you can, they will give you more. And sometimes it's unfair because the same person that's next to you is getting paid the same amount of money, and they're not doing what they're supposed to be doing. Now they're overloading you with work instead of spreading it out easily. And that, because like Chef Gary said, they will abuse you guys, us too, because I've been in that position too, when that guy was given so much work, and by the end of my shift, I was not able to complete my job task. And unfortunately, I had to stay a little bit late, but here he comes, 3:00 p.m. Gotta go. Like, I'm not done yet, I'm not finished. I'm not finished sitting up with a PM guy. If I leave, I could even leave him or her in the weeds. And they don't understand that. They all are driven by numbers. In this business, you got managers who are pencil pushers, penny pinchers, and will drive the labor sitting behind the desk without knowing what's going on in front or in the kitchen. Okay, let's give you guys an example. Last couple of weeks about the shop that I used to work with. He was stepping out of the property to go get his manicures and get his tan in the tanning salon. You know what's going on? Yeah, he was.
That's important, Chef. It's
Yeah.
professional.
Come back, a nice, clean, shiny fingernails, and his skin looked all orangey. I'm like, dude, okay, whatever. Anyway.
Yeah, I had a problem like that at a restaurant where I have like a 6-7 hour prep list, and or a 12-hour prep list. I'm sorry, and I only had a 6-hour shift, so I'm sitting there having to do 12-hour works in 6 hours, and then kind of complain at me like, "Hey, it's not done." I'm like, "Well, it's 12 hours to do all this, and I'm only here for 6."
Yeah, that gets stressful if it's daily. I mean, that happens once in a while, some planning error or something, but if that's daily, that's hard. And I don't think that's a way to keep good people. Good people leave if you run them that hard, you know.
Well, because I mean, I do the prep, and then whatever I don't do or get to night time, you know, I know they get busy, but there's been times I come in and I actually go into the POO system and look to see what numbers they had last night, and they had plenty of time to help, you know, do it, but they just left it all on my back to do it all.
Yeah.
And I would always bring that up and get in arguments with them about it.
If there are some that even go to the extremes of doing the, what is it called? Hours per cover, okay? They'll oversee the human factor, what it takes to operate a kitchen, and they will be driven by numbers. I'm going to give you guys an example here. This is a schedule that I ran a while ago, and we had to submit it to my boss before we can even post it, okay? I know there's a lot of numbers. I know you guys had your chance of developing your own schedules. Here in the bottom, this is what we were guided as, okay? Again, this is a restaurant and a hotel where 43 square feet meeting space. That was at the embassy in Norman, Oklahoma, a large one, 200-300 rooms, whatever. And we could feed up to 600 people for breakfast, just as you see there. It says comp breakfast. Comp was the short word for complimentary breakfast. So when you check out Embassy Suites, those of you guys that have stayed at Embassy Suites, your breakfast is included or free, but it's included in the price per room. Only your breakfast and the manager reception. So that came up from a different account. The restaurant was not open for breakfast. Only the comp area was open for breakfast, okay? Maybe having Wi-Fi issues, James. Anyways, come breakfast, it's included in the room price. It's not for free. Same thing with the manager's reception. So we took that in consideration because people that had stayed on the property had nowhere to go, and they would definitely hit us for breakfast. So we take a look at the occupancy, like you see in the bottom says number 71, hotel occupancy.
Chef?
Yes.
There's nothing on the screen right now. It's just a black screen.
Really?
Yes.
Buffering.
On my end.
Yeah, I got the same thing.
Same here, Chef.
Well,
All right, let me go this way. Have you seen now?
Yep.
There you go.
Good.
Got it?
Yep.
Thank you,
All right.
Mercedes.
Thank you for that. Again, row number 71, hotel occupancy, 54, 57, 82, 100%, 86, 100, 100. Total guests in the house, 334, 244, 278, 451, 371, 425, 623. Those are the number of guests that we're going to come down for breakfast, okay? As you can see at the top, we don't have come breakfast, 500, 350, 250, 300, 500, 320, and 450. Those numbers are different than the ones in the, oh, I'm sorry. Where are we?
955.
Yeah, total in-house, yeah, they're different with those on roll number 72 because, you know, a lot of people hotel guests, they don't specify how many people are staying in a hotel. Sometimes they stay a lot more than what they're supposed to. So when they come down, they got to say their room number so they can eat breakfast. So that part of the schedule was driven by what we call the POR, per occupant room. My budget for that week was $1.21. Okay. I had
$1.21 a person, right, Chef? For anybody who came through your breakfast, continental breakfast on that morning, or complimentary.
So POR, that meant that I was getting $1.21 per guest to my labor account. $1.21 is nothing, right? It's nothing.
Oh, that's a labor budget. Okay.
Yeah, that's a labor budget. Okay. Labor dollars was 2,180.21 cents. So if you took the 121, but the total number of guests throughout the whole week, that equals to $2,180.20. That's how much money I had to spend on my labor for breakfast. Okay. So keep that in mind. Per occupied room, the percentage, the dollar is 121 per guest. Total for the week, $2,180. That's how much money I had to spend on my labor for the breakfast. Labor dollars, what I actually had on my schedule, $2,511 on my schedule. I was, my labor dollars were over from what the forecast was, and so was my POR, per occupied room. But there was no way around it. I wasn't able to sustain the amount of guests coming up for breakfast if I cut back down. And again, these are the numbers that are seen and driven by your bosses and people behind the desk. They are driven by the labor hours, by covers. And this is reality. You'll get a chance to work with some of these people, and they will not look at the human factor or what in reality it is. Again, this is my budget, 2,180 versus what was on my schedule, 2,511. I was over, what is it, 20, 30 cents? Okay. I was over.
For your, yes, it's 38 cents.
I was over
For your
38 cents.
POR? Yes.
Yeah, POR. So you think that was going to fly with my boss? No, right? So I had to explain why and how come I had X amount of labor dollars on my schedule above the $1.21, and that was hitting like 159. Okay, on my regular schedule, the forecasted revenue was a 63,952. The actual revenue, according to the banquet events, okay. Now you see that slot from 59 until 69, right? AM banquets in pink and PM banquets on the other side. Okay. You see Saturday, I had a breakfast of 200 buffet style and 24 lunch boxes, LS for lunch. Okay, for lunch, that's AM. Sunday had a 24 lunch box, so 24 box lunches. Monday had a small little party of 20 for lunch plate up. Tuesday, a 30 for lunch plate up. 180 banquets, sit down lunch plate up. That's 3 courses. Anytime you see plate up, it's 3 courses. Wednesday, 300 continental. That means muffins, Danish croissants, fruit, maybe some cheese, coffee, tea, water, juices, drinks, those things. And then they went and had a box lunch. But the box lunch is a sandwich, apple, your juice, your water, and your condiments to go with it. And at the same time, I had a buffet for 150. Okay. And plate up, I had 150/reception. So Wednesday was kicking. Thursday, 125 continental, 125 3-course meals, sit up, plate down, sit on at lunch, plus a 300 continental and 300 lunch buffet, right? Friday, 335 for buffet, 100 plate up, sit down meal, and 133 in another room, different menu. It was busy, right? My kitchen, that place was busy.
Chef, quick question. For this particular one on Thursday, why did you separate the 125 from the 300 for your continental breakfast or your why did you separate them?
Different groups.
Different groups, Mercedes.
I'm sorry?
Sorry.
Different groups?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
A group of 125, another group of 300. Yeah.
Okay.
It could be a different room. So yeah, you got to send it. You got to plate up the whole one and the whole different, or I shouldn't say plate. I should say you got to prepare one with all the trays and all that stuff, cover it, prepare it, have it ready. And then when the time comes, put it out. Same thing in the other room. So it's a whole other event that the kitchen has to make happen.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then for the
Thank you.
PM, I had 150 reception and 24 buffet for dinner on Monday. Tuesday, 115 people for reception. That could mean pass-through doors, action stations, a bunch of other things according to the menu that I had bought. And they also bought another package, so they were having a sit-down dinner for 115 people. And then Wednesday, 60 people for buffet. So that means everybody that was there the morning, the 300 and the 125 were on their own. That means I had to have coverage on my schedule for the PM should they come through the restaurant. Okay, we're gonna get into that. Okay. Thursday, I had 70 people for reception, 50 reception, different room, different menu, different group. Another one for 12 AP, and then 12 plate up and 30 plate up. So little different ones. And Friday, I had a 10 plate up, 50 receptions, and 285 plate up. Okay. So those were the numbers that were driven. Now with this banquet events, every time we get a banquet menu, it would already have the price on the BEO, banquet event order. And so what I would do, get all the banquet events prior to the, on Monday for the following week, and I would get them and tally how many people were coming in and the price per person per menu. And that's how I would base my revenue for the week. Okay, so I took all these events for that week for lunch and dinner, reception, buffets, all that. And I tallied the number of people and how much they were paying per person for their meals. And we were had on the books already $95,000 in revenue. $95,000 in revenue. Okay, the forecasted was 63,000. Okay, so we were over by what, $20,000-$30,000 in revenue. So even though my forecast said 63,000, my actual revenue
48.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
your revenues went about $31,000 over.
$31,000 over.
Expected.
So even though the forecaster was set at 63, and how much money I had to spend according to the forecast at 13%. Remember, I give you guys 24%. I was trying to, I give you guys a little wiggle room. That was my forecast. That's how much I had to spend in labor, and those were my percentages that were driven. Because we were so good, we shot ourselves in the foot the first year. So the second year, they dropped my forecast below what it was supposed to be. They only gave me to spend 13% at 8,000. But my actual revenue, according to the banquet event orders, not including the restaurant, what was forecasted for them to bring on the covers, was 95,000. That means I could spend a little bit more in labor. And when my actual schedule was posted and done and calculated, my total labor, including overtime and even the temps that I had to hire, was almost 11,665. My percentages were at 12%, below what was forecasted. So my schedule was approved for the cooks. I had to explain why it wasn't approved for my breakfast, because my POR was over. Okay. So again, sometimes if once you know the food, the recipes, the flavors, the textures, and you know how to schedule appropriately, you can take a look at those numbers and figure out how you're going to have coverage on those dates. Remember, I forgot about Saturday. 200 for breakfast, 20 for lunch, and then another one, 100 for dinner, and 175 for buffet. 2 different menus, 2 different rooms. So once you figure that out, you plug in your hotel occupancy, how many guests in the house. You plug in your forecasted numbers and what percentage you, in this case, forecasted per occupied room, and then you go ahead and start drawing the schedule. Now, it will take us at least about a half a day or a morning to figure out the schedule and have enough coverage, and then give our staff the requested days off, or make sure that we didn't overwork them and they're working 6 days. We would approach them, hey, can you work overtime? We have X amount of business, and if you like to, this is the time to work overtime. It's allowed right now, and we need it. Can you work so? It wasn't like you have to work overtime. And most of the times they would sign up automatically, okay? So numbers, driven by numbers. Okay, now let's look up at the schedule real quick, okay? Here we go. I was off Sunday, so was my second in command, and my banquet sous chef would cover Sunday because that was supposed to be our slowest day of the week. I had meetings to attend Monday through Friday, and a lot of things to do on my plate, plus ordering and so forth, so on. My banquets executive Sue had to help out the banquets, the restaurants. We were all busy at all times. So my breakfast, Sam, Mikey were the breakfast cooks. Krista, Jeanne, Danielle, Alina, and James were all the servers. And I can take a look at Saturday. I'm loaded. I got coverage because Friday for Saturday, the hotel occupancy was high, and we had almost full house. Okay, and this is a week out. So by the time the week actually comes, guess what? Those rooms are going to fill out. You're going to be almost 80-90% occupied. So that means you're going to have at least about 600 guests. So I was making sure I had enough coverage. And breakfast, it was open at 6 a.m. and they would close at 10 a.m. I scheduled them until 12 to make sure they clean up and they prep for the next day, because Sunday is the exact same thing, okay? Servers until 10:30 and 1 o'clock to make sure that they clean up and let the breakfast area clean, mop, organize, reset for the next day. Same thing on Sunday. Monday was a little bit slower, so I could deal with one breakfast cook and maybe cut back on the servers. Same thing Tuesday, one breakfast cook, cut back in the servers. But in this case, I loaded up with some temps because I had to give my staff some days off, okay? And the ones in purple are temps. Wednesday, as you can see, I have coverage. Now I'm cutting back. Instead of scheduling them until 12 o'clock, I will schedule them until 10:30. If the reason for that, same process, because if I needed them to stay a little bit later, or if they didn't finish, like I was telling you guys, they didn't finish their prep on time, there was a little wiggle room for them to stay a little bit longer and finish what they had to do, okay? What else? Thursday, same deal. Friday, same deal. So that was my breakfast, okay? As you can see on the right-hand side, okay? For my banquet suit, he was working 57 hours. And unfortunately, I had to figure out his wage in hourly, even though he was salary. So I was spending $1,000 on him, including overtime. My breakfast cook, he was working 38 hours, even though I had 1 day off. So he probably pulled in about 45, 48 hours that week. Same thing with my second breakfast cook. And then the servers, 44, 25, 32, 37, 30. And I would only give the temps 36 hours because it would cost me a lot more than my regular servers, okay? That's how much money, $2,511 on my breakfast area, okay?
The temps like contracted out?
511 for 1 week of labor, right, Chef?
Correct. The temps, what we call them ahead of time, and I would ask him, I would request how many temps I needed, what time, and I would also emphasize what kind of uniform they need to be in when they come in. Obviously, my uniforms for the breakfast servers was different than the temps, so we required them to come in black pants, a little black vest, and a white shirt, black shoes. But it would cost a little bit more, sometimes $4 or $5 more than I was paying my regular staff. And I didn't want to do that because I don't want to take it away from a regular staff, but sometimes it's an equal necessity. You got to do what you got to do. So my cooks, okay, here we go. This is my morning cooks. I got Marissa. She requested, again, if somebody requests a day off, please note them on the schedule if you can request their days off. So in this case, I wrote in R/off, and I would keep the schedule on file should she complain that I was never granted her request this off. Like, wait a minute, look, I granted you request day off so-and-so week. It's right here, so don't come in, you ask for it, and it's there, okay? So 8 to 2, total about 36 hours. Michael, 3 to 11:30, so I had 3 on Saturday night, 2 on Sunday, 2 Monday, 2 Tuesday, 3 Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. And the the lunch cook, Marissa was my lunch cook. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And those days that she was off, I would ask somebody from my banquets line staff to slot in and work for those shifts in the morning while she was off, because I had to have coverage. Anyways, 36 hours, 48, and that was included. So 600 and what does it know? $1,536 for my breakfast cooks. Banquets is the big one. On 1 day off, Nahid could not work. I think she had surgery that week. Jason, he's the one that had issues with. Remember that guys that I show you? Okay. Brandy spilled 2 eyes because she was blind in 1 eye. That was her inside joke. Brandy spilled with 2 eyes. Anyways, that was her inside joke. Justin, 6 days. So I was heavy on my banquet cooks, 55, 55, 55, 55. Total dollar amounts I was spending on them was $2,090 on my banquet cooks. Okay?
Jeff, this is quite a few years ago, right?
2010.
Yeah, these numbers look a little low. I mean, like for hourly amounts.
But remember, this is what 19 years ago, and the hourly wage was $9, $10, $11, so it was low. Nowadays, the wage is maybe $12, $15. It's not the same. Okay?
Yeah.
Freddie, a dishwasher, Robert too. So Freddie was alone, so I had to hire a temp. He was the first one in the morning, but I had to hire a temp too because I could not just have one dishwasher and then have him wash plates for 600 dishes. Okay. So Andy, 2 days off. He was it was not Doug. He was different, but he was a hard worker. And then my PM stewards, Larry, Billy, and temps. And I had a hard time because when I would hire people, you saw my my written warnings with Sam about being off and not coming back the whole week. So I had a hard time finding good stewards. And when I found them, I kept them. I treated them well and kept them. Okay. So anyways, $1,384 on my dishwashers. Okay. That's how much money we're spending. Now, if you look at the right-hand side, this is where the numbers come in. Okay. So this is where the formulas are plugged in. Just like when you guys are going to create your schedule, you're going to take a look at your forecasted check average, your forecasted total daily sales for lunch or dinner or breakfast, whatever your restaurant is going to operate. You're going to figure out your schedule. You're going to make sure you have enough coverage in your schedule. And you're going to also figure out how many hours they're working, how much you're paying them, how much the total dollars that you're paying them in labor. Okay. So here it is. And now at the bottom, okay. And again, I love spreadsheets. This is how I would drive the bus. If my labor dollars, the actual ones, were double the amount of what was forecasted and the revenue was not even close to what was forecasted, then that meant I didn't know how to do a schedule and I had way too many bodies. Okay. So by looking at this, I can take a look at it. It's like, holy cow, $95,000. That's a lot of revenue. I better make sure I have enough coverage. Hence why I have resorted to higher temps. It was necessity. Hence why I resorted to have overtime, because I didn't have the right staff to sustain that amount of business. Just like I was telling you guys, if you guys have $100,000 to play with in sales, and the 24% is $24,000, and you give us a schedule that was 12%, that means your staff is getting hammered, and you're not being able to sustain the business coming in your front door according to your schedule. So when you see the dollar, like I tell you guys, spend it wisely. Make sure you hit those numbers, because the next year will come over and you're not going to have that luxury to have and sustain your staff. They're going to get murdered. They're going to get slaughtered. They're going to end up walking away and quitting. Does that make any sense?
Yeah, Chef. I have a quick question, and this is in regards to the video that we watched. Now, he mentioned something that I thought was interesting. He had, well, I suppose there are businesses that have individuals with multiple positions with multiple pay rates. Now, that just seems somewhat contradictory to me, because if you're going to have someone filling in many positions, why not just pay them at a rate that is equal across the board? That way you don't run that issue of having them sign in under the wrong code and getting paid more than what they should be for their specific job. Also, again, that kind of ties into overusing your staff as far as, you know, labor. So, I mean, is this a normal practice? Yes. Or is this, it is?
Very normal practice, because if you don't follow those guidelines like he stated, that's what I was going to get to next. If you don't follow those guidelines that he stated, you might get in trouble with the Department of Labor. If they come and do an audit and you're using somebody for, let's say I'm using a dishwasher, like I was trying to, you know, promote Jason to a prep cook, right? He was, that day he was supposed to work in banquets. So I had to have him come in and punch it at a different rate, at a different code, so he can get paid at a different rate. Because if you don't, you're using somebody that's doing a lot more work and they're not getting compensated for it. You're underpaying them. That's in the labor laws. So yes, you do have to make sure that they punch in and use a different code to work in the different departments so you can pay them accordingly. In that case, you got to be careful, because if you have a large operation like this and you have a lot of people, a lot of staff, let's say I'm down in kitchen staff, maybe banquets, there's somebody that has a culinary degree, a culinary knowledge or experience, and they want to work in the kitchen with me. Well, for me to be able to make sure that they work with me, first of all, they can't work more than 40 hours in the department. And when they come and clock in, I got to give them a different code. They can clock in and work in the kitchen at that code, so they can get paid accordingly. Because a server only makes, what, $4.30? Line cook can make 15 bucks. So why pay a server that rate, and they're working that as a cook? Now you're looking at maybe paying the difference, like an average between $4 and $12. You can't. You got to separate the both, because each one you got to report different taxes to the government. That's another thing you got to deal with.
Okay.
So Chef, you're saying if you got a server that's capable of working in the kitchen and you put them in the kitchen for a shift, what's their code going to be? What's their hourly level going to be?
It all depends. In this case, if I did hire somebody from the banquet departments to work in the kitchen, they would maybe work at their code was, I don't know, I'll just give an example, 2 to work in banquets. Maybe the code in the kitchen was 5. So they will come in and clock in on the code 5 and then swipe the card. And then automatically that went to payroll and they were automatically getting paid. And this, again, I'm gonna use an example, $15 an hour versus their hourly wage, which was $4. So
right, so if you have a server that's at $4 and they're making tips on the floor, but you have to use them in the kitchen, then they're gonna get something more like a kitchen wage when you have to put them in the kitchen, and that's electronically done in the payroll app or whatever.
Right, and if they work with me on the payroll app, that means they're not in the tip pool, they're not getting a tip. They are strictly working in that code, not working in banquets, not working in a server. They're working in the kitchen with a kitchen uniform, not working in banquets, so they're not able to draw from the tip pool, because otherwise, and again, it all ties in with the legality of making sure that you have the right dots in place and you're not getting in trouble if you do get audited by the Department of Labor. And that goes a long way with, make sure that you report the right taxes to the government.
Chef, I remember Go ahead, Mercedes.
It's Tia, sorry. So not coming from a hotel's perspective, but from a small business perspective, the restaurant that I was currently working at, I was the only manager. There was no kitchen manager, there was no server manager, there was no bar manager, there wasn't any of that. So I would use either one of my servers that have been here prior to me that knows everything that I know. They're what you would consider a server trainer. They can train somebody to do everything so that I would have a day off. So on the days that they would work so that I could have the day off, they would get paid a regular pay versus getting paid that $2.13 an hour for a server, because there's no, you can't pay them to do the hourly job that they do, not get their tips and only pay them $2.13 an hour. You have to give them an hourly wage, a greater hourly wage.
Seems to me you have to do that. If they have management duties, they're not going to have time to really take care of tables in a complete manner and get the tips that would bring. They have to get a real wage, a different wage, like competitive wage at that point. Yeah.
Basically, yeah. So there's no way that they would get like a general manager's wage, but they would get a manager's, like, you know what I mean, an assistant or a lead's wage. Yeah. Because they have the same responsibilities. It's just that before they make the final decision on the days that I'm not there, they would have to check in with me. So no, they're not going to get a manager's wage, but yes, they're going to get a competitive wage.
If you were given your manager's wage, that's a whole new kind of worms you're opening up right there, because then they know how much you're getting paid. And that's a whole different ball of issues you don't want to deal with. So something comparable, but not the same or equally, something that they don't, because again, when you work in a certain industry, some certain businesses, that it's a confidentiality. You can't say how much you're getting paid. I'm going to pay you this when I'm off. No. You got to pay them something comparable, okay, but not the same, because.
Well, I think anyone who is worth their salt, no matter where you work, you should always know what everyone above you make. I mean, because that's the way I operate.
Well, there are different philosophies about that. Some people really would agree with you, and others would not.
I mean, me personally, I wouldn't take that offer to work for that manager. No offense to anybody, but because, like, if I was a server, that screws up my pay. That screws up my $2.13 plus those tips at the end of that paycheck. Because most servers get $0 paychecks.
Sorry, James. You can maybe work as a manager that day and come out with less money than you would have made as a server if the shift had gone right, right?
And that screws with the amount of money you're getting for that month.
Well, I think that's a decision a manager has to make. They have to set that rate to be strong enough that the server is not going to take a financial beating for stepping in and helping out as management. Absolutely. If you can make 19 and I pay you 14 and we get a good shift and you would have made $180 on that shift and instead you made 110, I mean, that wouldn't go over very well, right?
You just missed out on some money, Yeah. And I hate to say it, but as a server, money makes the world go round. That you're literally working for cheap in tips,
Sure.
That's why a lot of servers shy away from getting promoted to managers, because they probably make a lot more in the long term, more than a manager or a chef does, because all the great duties. In this case, Ms. Tia, you did the right thing. You know, ask them the way they can cover for you, because some of them do want to climb up the ladder and some of them don't. Some of them go for are money driven. If they're money driven, that's okay. That you can't convince them to come in and slot for you when you're off. Now, if they're driven by moving up the ladder and getting experience, yes. Then you sit down with them, maybe you draw a job description. This is what you're gonna do, so forth and so on. And this is how much I got offered to pay you for the time you're gonna be slotting in my position. Do you agree upon it, yes or no? Make sure that
you also have to look at your business. So like with the years that I was there, I knew for a fact that Mondays and Tuesdays were my most slowest days, no matter what. I ran with the lowest skeleton crew that I possibly could. So those would be the days that I would take off. If somebody wanted to, if there was an instance where a large group of people came in and they needed help or they whatever, I live less than 4 minutes away from the restaurant, call me. You can switch in and go be a server, and then I'll come in and cover until you get that table out. But so they weren't losing out on money at all. Instead of them getting a 0 paycheck every 2 weeks, they were getting a paycheck anywhere between, you know what I mean, $200 to $300. They were still making their money because I wasn't taking out of their pockets, or the manager doing it the correct way is not taking out of their pockets. They're using them on their less busy days when they're not making any money and still giving them their money making shifts.
See, that's the right way to go to, because you
that's
can't.
That's a good thought. Yeah.
Yeah, that's the right way to go, and you know, I applaud you for doing such a move like that, because if you're gonna throw somebody on a day that is slamming, you're gonna take off because you want to have off. That's killing your staff. That is probably not gonna fly. So having to work on a day that is slow and to still make more than they would have made on the floor getting tips, that's the smartest way to go. That's good management. That's the way it should be done.
Yeah, a lot of servers might be really happy to make $150 on a day when they were otherwise going to make 90 or something like that. But if the shoe's on the other foot and they should have made 150 and they actually made 90, that's when you know, that's going to sort of crater. One of us just said, I can't remember, was it you, James, a moment ago, said, yeah, I wouldn't be too happy with that, and I wouldn't do it. You know, saw that one time, I wouldn't be available the next time. Yeah.
So again, once you have your menu down, once you dissect the kitchen, once you figure out how many bodies you need, who you're going to hire, how much you're going to pay them, and so forth, so on, then you can sit down and forecast your numbers, figure out how much sales you're going to bring in, and what's your labor dollars according to the percentage that you're asked to run or you want to run into your operation. And again, take a look at the whole pie in general. 32% of that pie is food costs. 24 is labor. If you can reduce your labor less than 24, you might be doing great. I was here, I had a 12%, okay? So I had a 12% labor cost, and my food cost was 28%. So total, what is it, 28, 30, 40% of the control cost that was running in my kitchen, okay? Not bad, because it could have been higher. My labor could have been 24, my food cost could have been 34. That was back in the old days, not now, okay? So numbers. So again, once you figure out your menu, your prices, your forecasted covers, how many people you're gonna serve, you figure out how much per week you're gonna generate, whatever, your numbers are gonna be different than when we started. They're gonna be different than 100,000 according to your menu. Then you can figure out, draw your percentages and draw how much money you gotta spend on labor, and try to have enough coverage. Just, you know, again, I use this as an example, trying to have enough coverage that you're not killing your business, you're not turning away customers, and you're not over killing your staff either. If you have enough money to spend on labor, use it wisely. Make sure you have enough coverage. Make sure you take a day off or two, because again, sometimes we need to go ahead and have some mental rest so we can come back the next day and go at it again. You can't burn yourself out. No matter how young you are, you're gonna get burned out really quick, really fast, okay? So, good schedule, okay? Any thoughts?
Quick question. I noticed that you and the executive stew are just 7 or 6 till, and is that because you guys were strictly salary?
Correct. So
okay.
in this case, our schedule was 7 or 8 o'clock, and I was trying to shingle the two. I was coming sometimes at 6 in the morning, and I would shingle him to come in at maybe 8 or 9, because I wanted to make sure that I wasn't there all day long, and he wasn't there all day long too. He had a wife and two sons, so I wanted to make sure that he was able to get some sleep and spend time with his family before he came to work, and I make sure that I was able to at least go home and bark my dogs. They would be crisscross and applesauce all day long in the house. Okay, so we worked at a place that I came in at 6, and I would leave maybe by 4. He came in maybe 8 or 9 o'clock, and it would leave by maybe 9 o'clock or 8 p.m., something like that. But in times where we're busy, we both come in at the same time because we have so much going on. There was no way that either one of us could sustain the amount of business at $100,000 a week and still be alive. So sometimes we would come in at the same time and we leave at the same time. And salary, sometimes we leave it 7 and dash close CL, because we sometimes you can leave when you're salary. You don't have to stay until the very end. If it's a slow day, you can skip out of town after 8 hours. We call that a half a day, unfortunately, in the salary world. But most of the time we worked out 10, 12 hours, 16 hours a day. So we will always leave it open, or running the schedule open, or 7 or 6 a.m. to close. Once your salary, you can do that. Okay.
I hate being on salary. It doesn't give you a very work-life balance at all.
No, because
there was one point in time I would go in at 7 o'clock in the morning and I would leave when the restaurant was shutting down. When you're a salaried manager, you don't leave when you want to. You leave when your job is done.
Business demands.
Your job is never really done.
That's one of the big challenges is a good boss, a good organization wants to support you and give you some authority to write how you think your schedule is best to do the coverage and all the tasks that have to be done. And they should want you to work a sensible amount of hours. Some poor organizations and poor managers will let you come in at 7 in the morning and still be in there at 10 o'clock at night, and see that going on and walk right on past on their way out the door, and never sit you down and say, hey, dude, when are you going to take a day off? And when are you going to schedule this to get yourself down to 9 hours a day instead of 12? Yeah. So you got a boss like that, you got to take that bull by the horns, and you got to manage yourself, delegate things, and set time frames for how long you're able to work or be willing to work each day. And then you have to try hard to stick to that. And if you have a boss that doesn't think that's an okay thing, you're working for the wrong guy or the wrong woman, right? I've actually had a great boss one time that took me in the office and said, you're looking a little bit wiped out, buddy. You're getting kind of grumpy. You got bags under your eyes. You're finna run into a wall. When are you going to take a day off? This is the boss. I mean,
The restaurant that I was working at, it was owned by 2 gentlemen. The first partner was the one that I started working for, and he didn't care. But when the second partner took over, once he bought it out completely on his own, he was like, yeah, you're here way too much. And that was when I got that, I can start going home and having dinner with my kids more than just on my day off or something like that. So, but you do find those ones that if they're paying you on a salary, they expect for them to do the least amount of work and you to do the most.
Well, that's so that second one that wanted you to actually get your life in order and get that balance. Was it you that mentioned that term work-life balance? That second one that wanted you to get that balance in order. I don't know. I don't know enough about them to know if that's an expert or not, but that's certainly the idea. And the person doesn't have any idea about that is a damn hard person to work for.
Yeah, it is.
So I'm going to ask you a question, guys. Listen very carefully. I just showed you and shared a great, awesome scheduled spreadsheet. Any questions?
I have a question, but I think my question's more user error.
Well, give us a try.
I don't know. Okay, so Google Docs and Google spreadsheets. I don't know how to create the formulas in that. Is it the same as it is in Excel?
Yes, they are.
Yeah, Excel is the same thing as a Google Sheet. I mean, you'll find one or two little tiny differences in how they save stuff automatically and so forth, but you can build formulas, you can paste formulas, you can paste special. Yeah.
So it's user error. That's all it is.
Correct. Now again, no questions? Let me rephrase it again a different way. Does anybody would like for me to share that schedule with you guys?
Yes, please.
Oh, sir. Definitely, definitely.
Yes, please.
But I cannot give you the schedule with the dollar amounts. I gotta, erase some of those dollar amounts. I will not erase the formulas. Maybe I'll leave the names and maybe I won't, but I cannot erase, I cannot give you guys their hourly wage.
Yes,
I don't care about the hourly wage. I just want the formulas to copy.
Again, when I'm asking you any questions, I would like to hear from you guys. Hey, Chef, can you share that with us?
Okay, definitely, Chef. We'll do
Right?
that.
I'm like waiting and waiting. I'm like, hello, hi. Anybody caught the whole spiel about how to work with numbers and how to formulate and how it's driven? Right, Chef Gary?
Yes, these sheets, some people are pretty comfortable with Google Sheets, and what's the one that are kind of based upon?
I actually
Excel?
took a class for Excel.
Excel, that's right, thank you.
You took a class, awesome. So
With Excel, you can do Google Sheets too. And the cool thing about Sheets is it saves everything as soon as you quit for a second.
And Chef, I've had prior experience with a bunch of formulas for the military. When I was a drug test coordinator, we'd have to calculate how many soldiers were positive, how many soldiers were not positive, and do another calculation of how many soldiers were tested that month and weren't tested that month, and so on and so forth. So I kind of got the formulas down, and I can kind of figure it out. I should have asked you for your spreadsheet for the fact that some of these other people that haven't gotten to do that. So I apologize for that.
Sounds like everybody's got the idea how to use them. I guess we'll find out as we get deeper in the project, right?
Okay. Anyways, just again, we speak the same language. I know it's been a while, but the numbers still apply. The formulas still apply. The percentages still apply. And I mean, Sabra, you say you took Excel classes. Then once you get this the sheets, you're going to be able to dissect them and manipulate them and use them as you may. Those of you guys who are very, very, very well versed in how to do formulas on Excel spreadsheets, Google Docs. Okay. So anywho, that's a schedule. And again, it's real life, it's real world. It doesn't change. Okay. Now let's get back to where we left off. Where are we? Okay. Here we go. No, that ain't it. Here we go. That's it. Okay. So again, creating the schedule in a restaurant is like fitting together the piece of the puzzle. Proper functioning schedule is vital to your business, but putting all the right people in all the right places is just part of writing the schedule. The other part is knowing what your true needs really are. Now, I just give you guys an excellent example of how to write a schedule, how to create it, how to implement it. And every place that you work may have a different system. Maybe they're using their own drive, their own spreadsheets, their own systems, but there's still the same rules apply. You're looking at the percentages, looking at labor dollars, okay? So for labor systems, the key measurements is dollars per labor. This number will tell you certainty with certainty when you don't have enough labor and when you have too much labor scheduled for certain shift. Again, my POR, per occupied room, I was $1.56. My budget was $1.21. I was over, so I had too much. But again, reality, it is what it is, right? Ideally, you want the right amount of people in place for the needs of the business and no more. So I was trying not to overkill my labor dollars. You know, I had money to spend, but I didn't want to overspend because if I didn't overspend it, it could be saved and pushed for the months that were really slow. So I had to play, it's something like playing a game of chess. You have all this business, you try to have enough coverage, and if you don't utilize all those dollars, you can put them in the bank and maybe have them for the time that you're going to be really slow and be able to afford at least one dishwasher. Because what happens if the staff comes in and you have no dishwasher? They get upset, right? What the hell are you talking about? I got no dishwasher tonight. Who's going to wash dishes, right? It ain't fun. So you got to be able to look, forecast, look ahead, and try to save as much money as you can. Okay.
So that if you have a couple of really, really slow nights and the numbers don't actually add up to make enough labor dollars to keep a strong dish staff, you can spend a little bit too much money that night and actually have a dish staff to clean up the whole place, clean up the back and do all the stuff that takes, because you were ahead of your game earlier and you use your labor dollars properly earlier. Is that what you're saying, Chef?
Right. You can save it and put them back in the piggy bank account. So when you're slow, you have money to spend because you don't have the sales coming in, but you have some money in your pocket to be able to sustain that staff. You don't want to run in the kitchen with no dishwashers. Right, Sir Gary?
You sure don't. I've done it a couple times. It gets old.
Yep. So together, first focus on tracking your dollars per labor, okay? Per labor hour. Dollars per labor hour is sales divided by hours. Sales divided by hours, okay? Remember that. Per hour's work. It's a roadmap to scheduling your hours in the right places. You'll see trends and be able to move hours from less efficient shifts to more efficient shifts. Now, the schedule that I just shared with you has those formulas plugged in. It does it for you. All you need to do is figure out your revenue, your sales, and then once you plug the schedules, plug their hours and the hourly wage, it'll do it for you. You don't have to break out a pencil and paper or create a spreadsheet that has the formulas. That's what I'm asking. Any questions? Hint, hint, okay?
So what Chef's saying is if your Google Sheets is set up right, and then you put, you're gonna have to be able to set up a sheet that says, okay, you know, if Monday says 8 a.m. to 3 p.m. and it's for Billy Bob, your sheet knows Billy Bob's wage, and your sheet knows to add up the 7A to 3P and multiply the hours times his wage, and then do that for all the days that he works, and tell you how much you're spending on Billy Bob each day and for the whole week. Is that right, Chef?
Correct.
You're designing a spreadsheet to do there.
Right. So you can do the long way and do it by hand, pencil, and paper, or you can create or ask for this sheet. I'm more than glad to share with you. Has all the formulas plugged in. So again, tells you how many dollars are coming in the restaurant per hour's work. It's a roadmap to scheduling your hours in the right places, okay? So again, I'll refer back to...
Chef Miguel, is this is a lot similar to the scheduled project that we had to do in the very beginning.
Correct. And you are going to
have a little more detailed from what I see.
Yeah, definitely. You're gonna. That's why that's why there's a reason why we do the things we do. And if you guys are not catching it, what's your final project at the end? One of them.
Yes.
Creating a schedule.
Yeah, creating.
With what?
That looks like every man.
With your projected revenue.
What else?
We're gonna have the recipe cost.
Your cost cards.
We have the recipe cost, the menu. Then we'll have the cost of inventory, staff, labor. What is our daily intake to the amount that we're spending that's going that you're having to buy for the ingredients.
Projected gross sales.
So the whole goal is for you guys to think like an owner, okay, not just like a chef or a cook. To really.
And this thing you have up, it looks like every manager's computer screen office I've ever walked into.
Right? Because they're always looking at the numbers. They're always looking to see how much is spending, how much is coming in, because they want to stay within the margins. Sometimes they're driven by the bonuses every quarter. Sometimes they don't want to be over the numbers, because what happens if you overspend? What happens if you're on the over percentages? What happens to your job? What happens to you?
You can get laid off. You can basically lose your spot, slower promotion.
You could get demoted.
Less hours. They just start doing a whole bunch of stuff.
Demoted or heads start rolling, you can get fired, right?
It's like you don't know what you're doing.
Right. So on the schedule, what we're asking for you guys is to figure out a schedule that covers all shifts, a schedule that gives you gives you the forecasted sales, the check average, the covers, the total daily sales, total weekly sales, how much dollars you're spending on labor, and your percentages. Pretty much what's in the screen right here. This is what we're asking for you guys to do your final project, to make you think, hopefully to have you guys think like an owner, like a chef, like a food and beverage. Because once you have acquired the knowledge in the kitchen, then you can put them both two together, and you'll be a lot more successful. You're going to be running your operation very smoothly, happy staff, happy campers, and generating profit. Because again, bottom line is how much money you're going to generate, how much profit, so you can sustain, you can enjoy a nice vacation, nice time off, and do the things that you want in life. Right?
Yes, Chef.
Chef, I'm thinking that there's probably a couple layers of complexity in here that are not going to be necessary for you guys creating a sales forecast, labor budget, and all that stuff for a restaurant. I mean, you're not worried about what percentage of the hotel rooms are occupied, right? You're not worried about how many guests are in the room on the average. Like, for instance, you might have a 500-room hotel. So if it was full and there was 2 in every room, you'd have 1,000, right? But could you have less than 1,000 in a full hotel? Yes, if you have if a big convention and many of them are just one person in a room, they didn't bring the family or a spouse or a sweetheart, right? So, and also on a tourism thing, a destination, a vacation spot, you can have a 500-room hotel with 1,700 people in it, a whole bunch of families, and they're playing at the beach all day and then coming in at night for dinner and so forth. So there's a whole bunch of layers of complexity in this that a hotel chef has to learn how to read and say to himself, self, I got a 100% hotel. I got 500 rooms. Not every room is full. It shows I got 850 guests. We have dinner functions for only about 400 of them. So that means there's 450 of them loose on their own. They could come in my restaurant tonight. Oh yeah, we're right next to 6th Street. Usually about more than half of them go out 6th Street somewhere. So now we have potentially 250 that might not have something planned or a trip out to 6th Street. So when that happens, we usually get about half of them. Okay, we're going to have 125 tonight. So that's little skills you learn when you're a hotel chef. There's a bunch of layers of that here you guys don't have to worry about. Just remember, if it looks daunting or looks too much, just remember, you just kind of more forecasting simple daily restaurant sales. You got a breakfast shift? Okay, figure it in there. Figure 5 days of it, whatever number of days you got. You got only lunch and dinner? Okay, fine. Figure your lunch and figure your dinner. You got Sunday brunch? Figure out your Sunday sales based upon how many people you think you'll have, what you think your average check will be. It's really a little simpler thing. And because of that, the spreadsheet is a little simpler thing than what we just showed.
Right. And you can use that to your advantage. Keep it, save it. It might come in handy, it might not, who never knows. But those of you guys who can go ahead and work with it and expand on it and modify it to your needs, go for it, okay? Use it, okay? But there's a lot of things that you're not going to be able to use or those tools for a freestanding restaurant. You're not going to need the hotel occupancy, the number of guests, the banquet AM or PM. You don't need all that. You need your schedule, your forecast, the revenue, your covers, and your percentages. That's all you need, okay? So anyways, that's the formula's already plugged in. Efficiencies are different from everyone's restaurant. So track your dollars per labor hour and realize that 3 weeks is what makes a trend. So when a 3-week time period is what you're going to see either trend go up or go down. Not in 1 week, 3-week trend, okay? Remember, at the end of the month, it's coming around. If your gut is telling you something's different, pay attention, but don't forget the numbers just because it doesn't feel right. Change is hard for everyone. And if your team is used to having a dishwasher on your Thursday nights, they're not going to like it if you tell them they're not getting one anymore. Observe what Thursday nights are really like and what is really needed. They compare that to your quantitative results of your dollars per labor hour and make an educated decision, not a guess. So again, go with your gut feeling. My gut feeling into that week was telling me that I was going to get slammed for breakfast, and I didn't have enough bodies to be able to sustain that business coming in. So I had to resort to higher temps. I had to figure them out. And yes, my POR was higher. Now I had to convince my boss not to take a look at numbers, but take a look at reality, what was going to happen and what's coming down the pipeline. Because again, bosses, they like to, they're numbers driven. And we as chefs, we know exactly what happens in the kitchen. And again, having that amount of money, I was 12%. My forecast was 13%. So whatever labor dollars I wasn't able to spend, I could put them in the piggy bank in my labor account and save them and use them when it was down, when it wasn't busy. So my staff was able to, I was able to give my dishwasher hours, and my staff was not required to work extra duties, washing dishes, busting subs after working maybe a busy day. Okay. So go with your gut, but also take a look at the numbers, take a look at the facts. The most important thing is to just get started, gather the information you need to combine your gut instincts with solid numbers. Prime example, right, guys? Prime example. Look at my numbers, look at the business, take a look at revenue, look at my schedule, and then with my gut feeling, go, oh, snap, I don't have enough coverage. What can I do? Can I go ahead and request steps? I got to go talk to my boss, explain the schedule, and this money's coming in. I'm going to have a lot of labor dollars to spend, but I'm not going to use and abuse them. I'm going to make sure I'm going to be in my marginal percentages, and to request if I can have temps coming in and fill in those gaps. If they know it costs me a little bit more dollars per hour, but still able to sustain that business. Okay. So again, combine your gut instincts with solid numbers. That is exactly what I just showed you guys. Okay.
Chef, sorry.
Go ahead.
A real funny thing that I noticed when I was in hotels, I guess the biggest one I worked in was a little over 400. So not a really big hotel, about 400 really nice rooms, ritzy place. I was the banquet chef in there later, but when I first started, I was the sous chef for like the kind of lunch and breakfast kitchen and a prep kitchen. I was a sous chef with 2 different kitchens to supervise. So that was plenty challenging and stuff. And the place was big enough with enough dollars flowing through it that they had some, a pretty serious food and beverage director with a lot of expertise, and he knew how to read his numbers. And he would put you through all the stuff that Chef Miguel was just talking to you guys about, the percentages, hitting a certain labor dollar figure according to a certain forecast and all that kind of stuff. And it was okay. Unfortunately, I was a sous and I didn't have to bear most of those headaches. That was the executive chef's issue, right? And then later I took a job as an executive chef, so I had full responsibility. So then I was going to be the person responsible for all the labor dollars and all the food cost dollars, food cost percent, inventory, accounting, the whole thing. My first really full charge, nobody else watching over me, hotel chef job. And in fact, I was kind of like the food and beverage director too, because the hotel was kind of smallish and they just finally decided, oh, we think Gary can do the executive chef job and the food and beverage job too. Which I did for about, I don't know, starting about a year after I started and until I left 3 years later. But the cool thing about the smaller place was they gave me a little more wiggle room, right? That when the hotel was really slow, they still let me keep a dishwasher, like one cook and a dishwasher, and I have to work quite a bit myself when it was slow because we wouldn't spend a lot of labor dollars. But in the bigger hotel, they would have been looking at that thing right down to the 0.1%. And they would have been really, really riding me like a rented mule on labor costs. And the small hotel are like, yeah, we won't make a bunch of money right now, but we're staying afloat and it'll get busy again. We'll be all good in a couple months. And it was true. So I wound up liking that smaller hotel because there was a bit of an informal approach. And if the food was coming out smooth, and the food was good and food cost wasn't crazy and the banquet customers were happy and they're coming back and booking for next year, that was the end of it. They didn't put me through a whole bunch of formal technical paperwork about every $10 I was spending. I like that smaller hotel for that reason. I saw the chef in that big hotel really pulling his hair out at times. I was glad it wasn't me.
It does happen. Now, remember, we're coming from the hotel business and we have all these great tools with us, all the spreadsheets, all this technology and knowledge. And it's a lot easier to go from that mentality to a freestanding restaurant. So when we talk to you guys about percentages and occupancy and banquets and all this and that, I know it's maybe a lot to digest and think about it, but if you take a look at that and try to dissect and separate the static extra numbers and extra gravy that's on the spreadsheets and really focus on what is at hand, your menu, your forecast, your check average, forecast of sales, your covers, weekly sales, and then go back and try to figure out your schedule. It's a lot easier than what it sounds and what it's made out to be. We're just giving you our knowledge of how it relates to all kinds of restaurant businesses, not just hotels. It also translates to the restaurant, because what if in your restaurant you have ample space and you have a segment of your room that you can fit maybe a party of 20, a 12 top, 20 top. That can be considered a banquet event because you'd be able to maybe able to do a little reception and then do maybe like a birthday party or some kind of event that you can fill that room and have a special menu coming out of the kitchen for that space. So it doesn't just apply for big hotels. It can also apply for a restaurant, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, it all applies too, guys. 5 easy steps to calculate the restaurant labor costs. Calculating restaurant costs is a critical part of your job, but it doesn't have to be difficult or time consuming, okay? It doesn't have to be, guys, okay? It's also worth the effort, because when you know what the costs are, you can measure them against sales and get your good idea of how your restaurant is faring. You can then use that information to quickly pinpoint areas of improvement in your restaurant operations. Now, the first week you guys created your Excel spreadsheets and you guys submitted your schedule. We went over them and some of you guys did great as far as creating the spreadsheet and figuring out your the number of the percentage of how much dollars you had to spend. But as we went back and we were telling you guys, you have X amount of dollars, make sure you schedule accordingly, make sure you spend that money, okay? So again, use that information to improve upon, okay? Make sure that your staff is not getting hammered. As you know, the two biggest expenses for restaurants are prime cost. Keep that in mind, prime cost, or the combined costs of food and beverage and labor. Prime cost should not equal more than 55–60% of weekly sales, with labor costs being 15 to 17% of total sales, okay? So prime costs, 55 to 60%. What does that mean?
What's prime cost again, you guys? It's shown right here in Chef Miguel's PowerPoint. What is prime cost again?
It's the combined cost for the food and beverage.
Combined cost, food and beverage, and what else?
It's like your overhead.
Yeah, well, food, beverage, and labor are included in what we call prime cost. So say, for instance, I have a 30% food cost, which is a number you guys hear a lot, right? And then maybe I have 12% labor costs, and then I have so 30% of my food, 30% of my sales dollars is spent on food, right? That means food cost. So then if I have 12% labor cost, that means 12% of the sales dollars are spent to pay the labor. And then a certain amount of sales dollars would be spent to pay the beverage. So that all added up, food, beverage, and labor will be what we call prime cost. And they're saying here that if you can keep that 60% or below, then you'll probably have enough remaining to pay the other things that still have to be paid and break even or make money, right?
Yes,
it's
yeah.
Really important to have a basic idea of what prime cost means. It means food, beverage, and labor the money you pay out to have food, beverage, and labor that it takes to do the job. That's prime cost.
So that's the biggest slice of the pie.
Yeah, combined, it becomes the biggest thing. Yeah.
So let's go back to the week one, and we give you guys some weekly sales of $100,000, right? What is 60% of 100,000?
Oh, chef, I don't do math in public. I gotta.
Not in public, did I hear?
No.
You said 60% of 100,000?
It's 60,000.
Whoa. We got an Einstein in here. What?
Big brain.
Your head must be ready to pop.
So that is 40,000, right? 40,000 in revenue, right? Or in profit. Well, revenue. Out of those 40,000.
Yeah, it'd be gross profit. It'd be the money that's left over after prime costs are paid before you pay all the other little stuff. So it's gross profit, not meaning this will become pure profit, right? But there's still a bunch of stuff to pay.
So if you take a look at the pie chart, 60% is a huge chunk, right? Somebody's hungry to eat that 60% of the pie. So 60%, then you add your fixed costs, utilities, electricity, water, gas, what else? Trash, sewer. You add another
leasehold improvements, ice machine lease dollars, electricity. Yeah. Like yesterday's tirade was 2 days ago, right? So a bunch of little stuff's going to come in there and hit you even after you think, oh man, I got 40% left over to play with. No, you don't. There's a bunch of stuff coming.
So out of the 40,000 left, take away 20,000. How much are you left with?
Not a whole lot.
20,000.
20,000, right? So you removed your prime costs, remove your fixed costs. Now you got 20,000 a week, and now that's profit after you paid everything else, chemicals, utilities, all that, pepper supplies, all that good stuff. Now you got $20,000. $20,000 a week divided by 7. What is that?
$2,857. I did it in my head.
All right, you're working 50 hours a week.
Mr. No Math does it in his head. How about it? Okay.
Yeah.
So you're working 50 hours a week, okay? Okay. So divide that by 50 hours a week. How much is your home take pay an hour?
$2,700 divided by 50.
$57 per hour.
So you said
2,800 divided by 50.
Yeah.
56.
Yeah, about 50. Yep.
So you're paying yourself $56 an hour.
Oh my God.
Everything's paid off. Still a chunk of change, right?
It's like 2 people.
Right?
Yeah.
That's a good chunk of change. So
about 2 people if you ask my doctor.
That's that Porsche money.
You're making 20,000 a week, okay, times 52. That's over $1 million taken home. Not bad. Not bad. Should you keep those percentages down? Remember, prime cost, labor, food cost, and beverage, 3 prime costs, and then your fixed costs, utilities, gas, water, so forth, so on. So it's very important, very imperative. Like the video says, you got to keep a very close eye on your labor, your food costs, and your beverages, okay?
So that's a perfect world, I guess you could say, is all that added up. But there's the unexpected cost, I guess, of like theft or something burning or breaking.
Right.
There are cost overruns that add up that kind of get out of hand before you really notice them and catch them. Certain produce getting more expensive, a farm crisis or a shortage of something, or I don't know.
Eroding in the
system. Let's say you got a chicken place and you're rocking right along, you're making some money, and all of a sudden, you know, the Moscow chicken blight hits all the chickens in the United States. And all of a sudden, well, you can still get some chicken, but they're harder to come by and they're twice the money. all of a sudden your prime costs are not held inside 60% anymore. The next thing you know, you could look up your prime costs are hitting 70 because your chicken's double.
Yeah.
Things like that.
Out of business.
Yeah.
No, well, you can take a look at your invoices, see how much the prices are fluctuating, because not everything's commodity. Commodities, your canned goods, dry goods that will never fluctuate in price. The non-commodity ones are your butters, your dairies, your meats, your pork, your poultry. Because again, your fruits or veggies, because every season, everything changes. Not the dairy cows don't produce enough milk during the wintertime. Chickens don't lay that many eggs. So those prices go, the demand is high and the prices go up. So you got to take a look at those considerations. So you have to adjust your menus, also your labor, because if you're slow, should you still be running at whatever percentages your labor you want to cut back, but we have the cooks twiddling thumbs in the kitchen. That's why when you go in the kitchens and the boss like you go home, you stay, because they're taking a look at those things. We're trying to be proactive, not reactive.
Chef, if you're running 22% labor cost to do your kitchen and your front of the house service and so forth, that's all pretty good. But what happens if your sales fall way off because of something like what's happening right now? Like right now, it's really bad. A lot of places just had to close. But what if it was a little different and places were still able to stay open, but their sales fell off by like 50%? Could you still get by on the same number of labor dollars with your sales cut in half, you guys?
I guess the guy at the top would have to take a cut, right?
Well, yes, and also you'd have to pay fewer people and pay fewer hours to the people you kept, and a lot of things would change if your sales got cut in half. Don't you guys think that?
You have to cut a lot of people's hours in half.
Right, and here's something else. Here's something else to think about. How to say it here?
Your labor percentage is going to have to drastically drop. Instead of spending 24%, maybe you slash them by half, by 3/4 of it, because you're not going to be able to sustain the same amount of staff. Even your food costs, you're going to have to drop that 30% to maybe 24% food costs, because you're not going to be able to sell and keep that flow going of goods coming to your back door. You got to get rid of that inventory. That's why a lot of these places go on to-go orders, and they cut back their servers, their cooks. They sustain on a skeleton crew because they want to drive those numbers down. Remember, the prime cost 60%, but they're slow business, then their prime costs are going to get reduced as well because there's no money coming in.
Right, 60% of $100,000. We just agreed a minute ago is $60,000. Now 60% of $40,000 is a whole different thing, right?
Yeah.
Here's another thing.
There's a restaurant that I know that I have a family member that works at. They went from having 35 employees to 8. They kept 3 kitchen staff. They kept 5 front of the house staff. The front of the house staff used to make $2.13 an hour. What he did was he's paying them $10 an hour to work to goes. They're not open on Mondays and Tuesdays. They don't open until 5. They're open from 5 to 8 because they weren't busy prior to that. After the last couple weeks, and the rest of the week they open at 11 and they open at 11:30 and they close at 8. He kept his kitchen staff at the same pay that they were already doing. His manager, he took her from being on a salaried manager to now she's an hourly manager. But the one thing that I will say about him though is that he's coming out of pocket a lot of money. He's lucky because he has a regular job. This restaurant isn't his sole source of income, but that's what a lot of people had to do.
Yeah. That's a heck of a bunch of stuff. So here's something else to think about. What happened in the news? Let's just say a little scenario here. Let's say 5 of you guys put all a bunch of your piggy bank, break all your piggy banks, and you come up and you come to Chef Miguel and say, Chef Miguel, you're the best. And we want to have a restaurant. We want you to run that sucker. And Chef Miguel says, well, I just happen to have a bunch of awesome pork recipes. And we'll sell some pork and some chicken and blah, blah, blah. And you start this place and you got it really moving real nice. What happened a week ago about that could really hurt you? You know about it if you're watching news at all or listening to news.
Wasn't something wrong with one of the food producers? I can't remember the exact
Yes,
name.
a Smithfield pork plant in Sioux Falls, South Dakota, employing about 3,500 people, wound up coming down with a whole bunch of coronavirus cases. And
that's right. A bunch of the people at the plants got sick with the coronavirus.
Right, and they finally had to close that plant, didn't they?
Yeah.
I think that plant was producing something. It was a huge, busy plant. They're producing something like 5% of the pork in the nation. And there's a couple other ones too. I think more recently I heard of one in Iowa as well. So now we got one pork plant just out, another pork plant just out. You got a whole bunch of stuff on the backside that we don't even have to think about. What about the farmer? Where's he going to go with all those hogs that are fat and ready to roll and he can't sell them? So there's all that. But as a restaurant, what if pork prices, what's going to happen to pork prices?
They're going to go up.
They could go up if the demand for your product stays high. If you got to keep on buying that much pork, the pork prices could go up if the factories are out.
This would be a case, Chef Gary, in which you have more than one purveyor, so you're not just dependent on that one person to supply you with your main menu item.
That could be true, and you could be lucky enough that the demand also falls a little bit, so the price stays about the same. But if the demand for that pork stays steady across the board, and 5, 10, 15 major pork plants get knocked out, that pork price ain't going to stay the same, I don't think. Or you could have a situation where the price is okay, but you just can't get it because there's too many plants shut down, not enough being produced. So I'm just saying that there's no way as a restaurant operator or a chef of a hotel that does not all have to be about owning your own business. We talk like that a lot, right? But I'm just saying as a chef, a owner, a food and beverage director, any of that kind of stuff, when people talk on the news about what's going on in farms and farm production and slaughterhouses and things like that, you better be hearing it. Right? If you're just jamming out on the top 40 of your best hip hop or something on the way to work in the morning and you got no idea what's going in the news, man, you better start reading some news, at least part of your day. That stuff's going to come up and kick your butt.
Because it all trickles down to the bottom line, to your table, to your plates.
Yeah.
Demand. So it all has effects. I got to put away my Tupac and NWA and get current events so I can take a look at, see what's coming down the pipeline, and hopefully share with you guys some of the news clips and talk about certain things, because again, numbers is what's driving the businesses. Numbers are going to drive your businesses. And this event that is happening now, it might happen again 10 years from now. So who knows where you're going to be in 10 years? Are you going to be running a business, having your own? So you need to think about what's happening, how to adjust it, and how to be more successful instead of just closing your doors down and shut it down.
Chef, it could get worse in the next few weeks, or it could get better too with some luck as well, right? Yeah. But it's really important I'm just trying to say, know a little bit about what's going on. Yeah.
Keep up to date, and it all applies to everything. It has a domino effect. So it's simple to determine labor costs after the shift, but what's the best way to plan proper shift coverage and future labor costs? If you're not using a predictive scheduling software, the next best option is to do a little math before preparing your schedule. Follow these steps to simplify your routine and save time. Now, you can spend time and buy a software online and pay the monthly fee or pay the one-time fee to install in your system, or you can have something that you create on an Excel spreadsheet or Google Docs and keep it running every week, every time, just updating the numbers, and save you money on, instead of investing on a software, do it yourself. Software is somebody that it has a business. They know how to what they need. They don't have time to sit down behind the desk, so they hire a software instead of hiring maybe an assistant manager or somebody to help them out, or maybe they don't know how to work the system. They want the easy way out. And again, to each his own. If that's the case, excellent, go for it. But if not, save yourself some money. Create your own Google Docs and take a look at your weekly forecast 2 weeks out and figure out how much you're going to spend in your schedule and how you're going to have some shift coverage. Okay. One, estimate the number of guests at a certain time. For example, you usually have 40 guests between 3 and 4 p.m. Again, I use McDonald's as an example. When you go to McDonald's for lunch, how many are sitting down? How many are in front of you? How many behind you? How many cars on the line? Try to average how many guests are in that 1 hour time frame. Okay. 2, look at the number of staff needed to serve guests. Okay. This is very imperative. This, we call this FTE, full-time employees. In my spreadsheet, I call it POR, per occupied room, okay? So one cook hour allotted, one cook hour for every 20 guests. So 2 cook hours, okay? One server for every 10 guests, 4 server hours. One host for every 20 guests, 2 host hours. So total of 8 employee hours are needed to cover 40 guests. Easy math, right? 8 hours of employees to cover 40 guests. That doesn't mean that you can just hire a cook to work 2 hours and kick them out, okay? So 8 employee hours needed to cover 40 guests. Number 3, determine what each hour equals in wages. The cook's average wage is between $15 times 2 hours, that's $30. Server's average wage is $5 times 4 hours, $20. Host average is 8 hours times 2 equals 16. So 30, 20, and 16, right? Okay. So here we go, okay? Find the projected labor percentage. The projected sales for your 40 guests is $480. The projected labor dollars spent on 40 guests is $66, okay? Divide the labor dollars by the sales, and you get your projected labor percentage.
So 66 divided by 480 would be 0.1375, right? And you'd move that decimal over 2 points, you'd have 13.75%.
Right. Okay. And again, this is if you don't have the formulas plugged in your schedule. You guys already did this practice. I give you a perfect example one not too long ago. But this is how you do it if you don't have those systems in place. So find your projected labor sales. Projected sales of 40 guests is $480. The projected labor dollars is 40 guests is 66. And again, divide the labor dollars by the projected sales. That is your projected labor percentage, right? 13%. Okay, 13%. Rules of etiquette for restaurant schedules, okay? Try to post schedules 2 weeks in advance, especially during holidays or other events, which change the quote, normal unquote schedule. This allows your crew to have a life and make plans, which leads to happier staff and fewer call-outs because they made plans before you posted a schedule. What do you guys think about that?
Makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
They give people a heads up, or else they're all going to be pissed off at you.
Yeah, how can you post a schedule Saturday night that starts Monday, for instance, or whatever? People by that time have been asked to do stuff, and they're probably holding off saying yes to it. They don't really know what their schedule is. It just causes frustration.
And again, I was telling you guys a while ago that, you know, I like to have like this week's schedule. It's already Saturday, so by Monday I will have all my numbers, my information. Tuesday I will work in the schedule, and Wednesday next week's schedule will already be up on the board 3 days before the week is over. Okay, so the next week's schedule is already up because again, people have to make doctor's appointments. They got to get the babysitter. They got to work on their car. They got to fix the car. They got to go pay the bills. They got things to do. They're not numbers. They're not just, you know, robots. You got to treat them with respect as human beings. You got to put yourself in their shoes too. You got to give them some time off to be able to tend to the daily chores. So 2 weeks in advance is not bad. If you can do so, if not, at least 3 days before the new schedule starts. Okay. To accommodate request days off, here we go. Let the crew know that it's first come, first serve when asking for Saturday or other busy days off. This means the need to plan ahead and lets them know that perhaps you can let one or a few have a day off. But beyond that, the answer is no. Talk with the crew. Be sure that they will be willing to pick up the extra work if you choose to allow a shift to be occasionally short staff in offer to accommodate requested days off. Often staff will rally together and work harder if they know that they're also going to have the opportunity to get a Saturday off or other busy day off occasionally. But don't always allow this to be the norm. Occasionally is the key here. Word is here. So you saw my schedule. Marissa had she needed 2 days split off. For whatever reason, I granted her, and I talked to the staff. I was able to pull somebody from banquets and work that station on her days off because I only had one morning cook. The other one we had to cut back because there was not much business for lunch. So always, if you want to create a spreadsheet, put it on a clipboard and write request days off for whatever week or dates, put it up on the board next to the schedule and let them know during a meeting, hey, by the way, if you request days off, at least give me 2 weeks in advance and I will try my best to grant you those days off. If not, then, I'm sorry, but we're going to be busy the next month or two. And I usually tell my staff during the monthly meetings, guys, summertime is coming around the corner. Right now, spring is going to be soon. So make sure that you make plans because summer is going to be extra busy. If you guys want to work overtime because we have those X amount of business, be sure to, to volunteer. And during that time, I may not be able to grant you days off. Give them a heads up.
Quick question.
Yes.
So I know that I want to do like a 4-day schedule like I did in the very beginning when I did my schedule. And when it comes to the letting people off, like if they already have 3 days off and say like, I don't know, a family member gets sick or maybe they have a birthday that falls on their work day or something like that. Can I just rotate, like just in that situation, couldn't I just rotate the other guy and be like, hey, you're off this day and this day. Why don't you ask one of the other staff members if y'all can trade, and then you can have that day off and have this day off.
You can. It all depends on your staff. You can rotate if you want. So maybe it's, this week somebody has a Friday or Saturday off. Maybe next week somebody else does. But remember, the business demands a schedule. So you might not be able to do that on an ongoing basis. Only when you can and you will allow to do that, but not every single weekend, because Friday and Saturday in the restaurant, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday morning are your busiest days. So those days are pretty much unheard of to be off unless you really have needed the day off. Then you can try to grant it and maybe bring somebody, your floater, your roundsman, to plug in those days. Or again, ask somebody they want to, they want to work overtime, and they want to maybe somebody in the morning to cover that shift. Because sometimes when you have a schedule in the restaurant, some of the times, Sunday, Monday, and Tuesday are the slowest days. Sunday for dinner, Monday and Tuesday for breakfast and lunch. So the guys might be usually off on Monday, Tuesday, might be able to switch with, or trade. So you just got to play it by ear and figure out your staff and your schedule, see how that applies to you. But again, try not to rotate them on a regular basis. Don't let it be the norm because they will expect it. But yeah, you can do that. Gather your team around and ask somebody that want to cover or somebody wants to switch days. If you can afford overtime. If not, don't try to go overboard and give somebody overtime because again, that prime cost is going to hurt you at the end.
Yeah, but that's what I was explaining, Chef, is on my schedule, everybody had a third day off.
Uh-huh.
Like they all had 3 days off. So, but they were different days. So what I was saying is if I told my employee, said, hey, this guy's off on your birthday and this guy's off and you're off on this day, like Thursday. Why don't y'all just switch it and then y'all have that day off and nobody has overtime pay and nobody, it doesn't affect anybody's schedule. They just don't get the 3 days in a row.
That could be done. You have to make sure you have a clear policy on schedule changes. They need to, if you switch with James, for instance, and you're going to pick up James's Thursday, and then that way James gets off Thursday if that's what he asks you to do, whatever. You got to let me know, and then we got to make that very clear in the schedule. And I got to have your initials and James's initials while I'm looking, and I put my initials on it. And then when Thursday comes, it's not James's problem now. It's yours.
Yes,
you'd do it, and
Yeah, but like, so it.
I understand
What you're
that.
saying is it's on the person who did the switch to show up, or is it on the person who tried to get it covered? If that
the
person doesn't
person
show
who
up.
agreed to cover it, if Daniel said, James, I'll cover your Thursday, and then you said, okay, thanks, Daniel. Danny, I'll take your Monday the same week in order to make that switch. We initial all those changes on the schedule, and then when Thursday comes, you're going fishing or whatever you're doing, and you are not responsible for that shift because someone agreed to work that shift. It's Danny's thing now, right? Danny's got to work that shift. Does that get to the question?
It does in my eyes, but like I've seen some managers that if that person that said that they would cover your shift doesn't show up, it's still your responsibility to cover to come in or get that shift covered. Like, how do you feel about that one? Like, do you still think that that's true, or do you think it's still on the person that said they would cover it?
Well, I don't know. Chef Miguel and I might be different on that. To me, you're an adult. You're a grown up enough person to hold down the job you hold down. Daniel, you asked Daniel or Danny, and Danny said yes. And I witnessed that, and I put my initials to it. I'm looking for Danny. I hope you enjoy your day off. I think Danny's got a damn job to do.
Yeah, I believe.
I think if Danny doesn't show up, Danny's in trouble, not you.
Yep.
You did the responsible thing to have the coverage, check it out in advance, get someone to agree, get my initials, all that stuff.
It all depends on the management, on the company. I've seen managers put it solely on the one that requested the day off and the one that actually made the switch. I see managers put it on the one that's supposed to recover. So it all depends on who you work for, or the type of eyes you're going to be. Are you going to put it solely on the person that requested the day off, or are you going to put it solely on the person that is supposed to cover? Okay.
Yeah, I would not like under that situation. Like, so if I ask someone to cover my Thursday, say I'm off Friday and Saturday for some crazy reason, I'm just a lucky guy that happened to get off Friday to Saturday this week, and someone says, yes, Gary, I'll switch on with you. You can cover my Tuesday and I'll cover your Thursday, and you got a 3-day. Good, I'm gonna fly to the Black Hills with a fly rod or something. I'm gonna go fishing. And I get on the airplane, I'm sure hope that sucker shows up. That is not cool. That guy bought that shift. That's it. It shouldn't be my problem. And if I'm working for somebody who tells me it's my problem, that's not much of a boss.
No, I agree 100% with that.
That's where I would come down on it.
Yeah.
Danny says yes. Danny, it is. Not my problem. I got a fly rod in my hand.
It all depends on Danny. Okay.
Right.
So once the schedule is posted, both the management team and the crew need to honor it. Okay. It is too late for the chef or management to change the schedule. Things happen. Sometimes the schedule may need change after it is posted. In most states, perhaps all states, the business that has a legal right to change the schedule. But doing so, that doesn't show respect for your crew. Work with your staff and get the permission to make changes. And again, that falls to the Department of Labor. If you're going to switch somebody's schedule on the day off and put them to work in the day, if they don't know anything about it, you're going to be in trouble and not them. Okay. Because you might be looking into, wrongful termination and so forth, so on. So don't ever do that. Don't ever try to schedule somebody on the day off and they don't know anything about it, okay? And honor it. Once it's posted and done, you have to keep following. If you make any changes, like if you fire somebody, let somebody go, somebody walks off the job, somebody quits, then you can go back and pull your team, take them to the schedule and ask, hey, by the way, guys, so-and-so, Armand is no longer with us. So, okay, Norma, please plug in the schedule.
Sure, can someone cover this? Yeah.
It was petty step for you to use those names, by the way.
Try to keep you guys awake. Anyways, yeah, do that out of respect to make sure that, everybody's on the same page and you're able to have coverage, okay?
Yeah, Chef, we should be making up fictitious names when we say make up these stories. We should not be, yeah.
That was it could be an Armand Perez, Norma Smith. Okay. What else? It is too late for a cook to ask for a day off if the schedule is posted. They will have to change their plans to accommodate work or negotiate with other cooks to swap days. And again, this goes back to what Daniel was asking. Managers, this is the picture. When they ask you to take the shift, okay, when you ask for a day off, right? Isn't that true?
Ain't that the dang truth?
Right? That's the picture of managers when they want you to take a shift. But when you ask for a day off, like the hell, right? Right?
Pretty funny.
Little comedy here, but that's true, guys. It is very true.
I experienced something like that. I was supposed to work a double as a server, and this group walked in from a funeral, and they wanted the private room. And usually we didn't do the private room in the afternoon, but my boss was like, "Look, I know you're working a double." He was like, "Hey, if you do this, I'll make sure you get a free meal." He was like, "On top of that, I'll make sure that your first cut this evening," and yada, yada, yada. And I was like, "Oh, no, you're just a nice guy. But when I want something off, you want to be..."
Microphone, Danny.
It does happen, guys. So if a team member change the days off in shifts, they always enforce that it must be approved by the chef, supervisor, or manager. This ensures that you approve the change and the needs of the businesses are met. You don't want the grill guy conning the pantry cook to work for him. Post the changes in the schedule and have each person initial the schedule, accepting responsibilities for showing up for the different shifts. Remember, guys, I go back when I was telling you guys my schedule. You know, if I did switch days off, I will bring them both. I would ask, they would both agree, and I would initial the schedule, either scratch off and then say off, and then the other side I will go ahead and write it in, maybe in red ink, their time in, and I will go back and make the switches initial and have them both initially too. You want to have that documentation, even though it's a Google Doc sheet document. You want to have it, sign it, dated, and put it on file. Should anything happen with the Department of Labor, you got proof that it was done and it was here through one of those audits. Cover your T's, guys, okay? Anyways, here's one example of a Blackfish back of the house schedule. Let me see if I can zoom in real quick, okay? Right? Chris is off Monday and Sunday. Henry's off Saturday and Sunday, both for 40 hours. Bruce is off Monday and Tuesday. Amy is off Tuesday and Wednesday, right? So here's just an example of a schedule. Okay. Susan off 2 days. Aaron has got 3 days off. Andy's got 3 days. Erica got 2. Jeremiah has 1 day off. He's pulling in 56 hours. Tom, 2 days off. David, 3 days off. Okay. So on this schedule, what do you guys see that it can be improved upon? How can you approve on this schedule?
Well, it looks like a bunch of people don't have days off at all. Erica and Jeremy.
They
well,
do.
Are those 2 days? Okay.
Yeah, the blank days are off.
Oh, okay.
It looks like a lot of them are working over 40 hours. You could change that around a little bit.
Bingo.
Yeah. I can see add up hours over 40. I'm seeing 7 to 6 1/4, 8 1/4, 6 1/2, 1 1/2. So that's just about one more person. You could have just about one more person, have everybody working about 40 and have a little bit of wiggle room if something goes wrong.
Yeah.
So they're working overtime, right? They have 2 days. Susan has got 2 days off. She's working 6 1/2 hours overtime. Aaron's got 3 days off. He's 40 hours. Maybe he can plug in one of those days and take away some of the overtime from another cook. Andy's got 3 days off. He's again 40 hours. Erica's got 2 days off, 48 hours. Jeremiah 1 day off, 56 hours. He's going to run to the ground. Tom has 2 days off, 47 hours, and David's got 38 hours. So definitely some creative thinking needs to apply here to reduce those overtime hours and work in the schedule and make sure they have enough coverage throughout the shifts and make sure that at least you have the ones that have 3 days off balance off the ones that have overtime. Okay. Yeah. So this is not a good management making a schedule. This is somebody that doesn't know how to make a schedule. Okay. And
what's the simplest overtime issue to solve on this schedule that Chef Miguel has in front of us here right now? What's the simplest one to solve?
Hire someone new.
No, what's the simplest individual with overtime to solve that overtime? As a manager, you're trying not to have overtime. What's the one you...
The first one that I would fix is Jeremiah. So like this day, right? Well, you can't see me, but this second day where his first one is green.
Susan,
what's the difference between this first day where Aaron, Erica, and David are working to where you go to the second day where Aaron, Andy, Jeremiah, and Dave working? Why do you need 3 on this day and 4 on this day?
The green.
You might have a busier day on that second day.
The green.
No, that's what I'm saying. So like, because I can't see the days at the top, so I don't know like if it's Monday, Wednesday, whatever. But like, if anything, and if that's a day that you have them come in, why do you have all 4 of them coming in at 2 p.m.?
Things like that, right? Right.
Yeah, why is that staggered?
Sometimes you'll have someone writing a schedule like that, and they've got 4 people at 2 p.m., and they could have one person at 2 p.m., another one come at 3:30, and the next one come at 4. So right there, you save 3.5 hours just on one day. And sometimes going to a change like that could be painful. People like, oh, we're not going to get our work done. We're not going to be ready. But what has really happened is they've kind of slipped into a level of comfort. They slide in there at 5 minutes to 2. They punch in. They get some tea. They chat. They take their time. I'm not saying people are trying to screw you, but I am saying that when people have more hours than they really need to get the job, the tendency is to fill the time they have. And, you know, they'll be ready at 6, but they didn't have to break a sweat to do it. And they'll squawk when you kind of change it around and cut those hours back a little bit, but they still want to be ready at 6. And you can get back to less overtime or no overtime.
This is a dinner service restaurant, okay? The green is the pantry. The purple is sauté. The blue is the expediter, also known as the wheel. The orange is the grill. So on Monday, the first day, you have 1 grill, 1 pantry, 1 sauté. Okay, Monday could be the slowest day. Tuesday, you have an expediter, 1 grill, expediter, pantry, sauté. Wednesday, you got 1 grill, 1 pantry, 1 sauté, 1 expediter. Okay. Thursday, you got 2 grills, 2 sautés, 1 pantry, 1 wheel, expediter. Same thing on Friday, you got 2 grills, 1 sauté, 2 pantries, 1 wheel, and another sauté. So in this case, take a look at the positions they're filling in, and why do you need 2 grills on a Thursday? Why not Saturday? Okay, so there's definitely some creative here, and if the place closes at 11 o'clock, why not schedule them to come in between 3 to 11:30? Why at 2 o'clock? Right?
Yeah, because aren't they overlapping with the morning people?
The morning people, they get out of there at 2 o'clock. No, they come in. This is one.
Yeah, see, so like your morning people are leaving at 5.
5, yeah.
And you have people coming in at 2.
So between 2 and 5, you got a crowded kitchen.
Yep. So why not cut it back to 3 to 11? Right, 3 to 11 instead of 2 to 11:15. So
most morning people out a little earlier, a good number of evening people in a little later, a lot less overlap, a lot less chatting, better focus, more space to work, right?
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, I would start them at 3:30, 3:30, 4 o'clock is when I'd start staggering them in, because I mean your morning people are gone at 5. That's when. So I mean I would have my night crew there completely by 5 o'clock, but bringing everybody in at 2, that's ridiculous. You're killing your labor right there.
Right, and if you close between lunch and dinner, then lunch closes at 2. Now you get between 2 and 5 o'clock for the AM crew to clean up, prep and get out of there. Maybe move to the back while the PM crew comes in, preps, and then slots in and gets ready for service. So yeah, 3 to 11:30 or 3:30 to 11 o'clock or 11:30 will be the best bet. But also, why not have 2 grill cooks on a Saturday? Why 2 grill cooks on a Thursday? Why 2 sauté on Thursday, right? So again, creative thinking and working with the schedule, it can make your life a lot easier. This is not, it's not friendly. You're killing your staff, you're killing your overtime, and you're going to get hammered on Saturday.
Yeah. I was in a similar situation. We would have one evening crew chief in at 2 o'clock or 2:30 p.m. And that way they're not really in the way. There's just only one evening person in there. The daytime people are still getting done and getting out. And the person coming in at 2:30 was responsible to kind of make sure they knew what we were going to be serving, what vegetables were available, what to use up, and those kinds of things. And they can also keep an eye on how well the morning group finishes out and leaves it for the evening crew. And then when the other evening cooks come in at 3:30, 4, that 2 o'clock person should have a pretty good idea what to do. You walk in the door, bang, that person has some tasks laid out for you right away. You can go straight to work because somebody's already been there thinking about it a little bit. Just a simpler and cleaner way to go and a lot less labor hours.
The person that made this schedule obviously doesn't know how the kitchen runs, how it operates, and they have no clue where the business is coming in, how it's going to lay out. So that is poor management. And you will have those individuals out in the industry that don't have a clue, and they just spit out a schedule, and the cook's going to be looking at it, it's like, what? They're going to be confused. What's this? What do you mean? It's only 1 grill on Saturday, 1 sauté and 1 pantry, and 2 expediters on Saturday? Doesn't make any sense, right? So there's some creative thinking on this schedule, and again, maybe this person didn't know how to make it, but this is.
Yeah, they probably don't be getting no bonuses off of labor hours, chef, because this would have messed up my whole bonus plan right here. No.
So this is another prime example, Justia. This is your chef. Have them submit the schedule to you so you can take a look at it. Okay, all of you guys are the chefs. Have them submit it. I mean, your owners have the chefs, the kitchen managers submit the schedule to you guys. You look at it and then approve it upon, or have them go back and make it the adjustments before they post it up on the board. Because if this schedule goes up on the board, that grill cook Tom on Saturday is going to be all pissed off. He's not going to be able to come in and work on Saturday because he's going to get hammered, slaughtered, and it's going to be the only one there. Same thing on the pantry. Okay. So again, have them submit the schedule to you guys. You guys take a look at them. You guys have more knowledge. You guys know how do you run, how do your restaurant runs, how do you operate, and what best needs is needed to run on certain days. Because again, we call that peaks and valleys. Some days are going to be busy, some days are going to be slow, so you can adjust it as you go. So keep this as a practice and demand or have it a standard for your chefs to submit the schedules to you for approval, right?
Yeah.
Yes, yes.
Because you don't want the schedule to go up on the board, because look at the overtime.
Yeah, I'm looking at this, and I'm just like, yeah, he ain't getting no bonus, so he showed.
No, that's why I get them to put in the rear end, right?
Yeah, that's a lot of hours.
Yeah. There's a door. Bye. Okay. That's how people lose their jobs. They don't know how to operate and make a schedule. Okay. Yeah, so keep that in mind, guys. Make sure that your chefs submit the schedule for you guys for approval. So how to make a restaurant schedule? A functional dining room service relies on a logical staff schedule. Logical. Before you can spend any time making your employee's schedule, it's important to know some of your basics first. Factors like tipping, weekly hours, time off, overtime, and laws for employing minors. That's another one we haven't talked about, okay? For employing minors, okay? All come to play when making the successful restaurant schedule. While it can seem overwhelming, there are a few helpful things to keep in mind that will make the process much easier. Now, so why do we mention minors in the mix?
There are different laws with how long they can work with breaks and stuff like that.
And what do you see minors in the industry most of the time? What kind of positions?
Washing the dishes.
Or hosts or servers.
Can't hire a minor as a server. You have to be 18 to be able to sell alcohol.
In like bake shops, you can still serve them though, like in smaller ones. Obviously not alcohol though.
No. Maybe if you hire a server that's 18 years old, he or she should not be serving alcohol because by TABC laws, they got to be over 21 to be able to serve alcohol. Now, where do you see minors? Yes, hostess. I've seen a lot of hostess up in the stands, and hostess usually don't work more than X amount of hours. So you can't have them work in the front of the house and as a hostess. You walk in there, it's like, how old are you? Are you 12, right? I'm like in shock. Labor laws, like, dude, what? 12 years old?
You also run into challenges if you are letting youngsters, I think under 17, I can't remember if it's an age thing or if it's a grade in school thing, but for instance, you can't have a student, a secondary student like high school working past a certain hour on a weeknight, on a school night. I think that it's even flexible enough that during the summer, if they're not in school, they can work later, but you can't have a kid in there 15 years old, for instance, working until midnight on a Tuesday night.
Most places only give students 30 hours a week.
That's probably wise.
Yeah, and that has gone up tremendously. Yes, you're right. You'll see him in washing dishes. You'll see him bussing tables. And I've been in the restaurant like, what is this grade school kid doing here bussing tables, right? Like, the hell? I'm like, dude, really? But back when I started, I was getting pissed off because, I needed a job to make money, right? And I was barely 16. And they could not give me more than 24 hours a week to work. And one place that I applied for a job, they hired me upon my appearance. They didn't ask how old I was, not even the application back then. So once they found out my true age, they let me go because I was not at a proper age to work as a bag boy in a grocery store. Believe it or not, I'm like, damn it, man. So anyways, so you got to make sure that you are in check with those child labor laws, okay? Yep. So what else? What are tipped employees? Right? Tip employees. Someone who mainly earns their wages through tips. Well, there are many professions where tipping is customary. Servers and bartenders are among the most common, right? Servers and bartenders. Who else might get tips in the restaurant industry?
Who else?
Host or bus?
Cooks?
No.
Catering?
I'm not familiar with cooks getting tips. Usually, I mean, sometimes the cooks will informally get a tip, but I don't think that I've seen restaurants like make that mandatory or anything.
Hibachi.
I wasn't at a restaurant that made it mandatory, but that sushi restaurant I told y'all guys that shut down, there was like a tip jar for the sushi chefs and stuff like that, and they split it with us. Like the heads and stuff like that. So, but it wasn't mandatory. Like you didn't have to go in and tip.
Yeah.
Buffet that I've been to, they have like, if there's like a grill, there'll be like a tip jar for all the people working the grill, and they split it.
Yeah, the Mongolian grill, the Asian buffet. So bartenders, servers, busboys, hostess get a cut of the tip pool because, again, if the hostess is really good, him or her or him, they're going to fill you up. They're going to give you good tables, and they're going to be evenly spread out to the restaurant. And sometimes, yes, cook will make tips too, especially like you say, you have a grill. My cooks that ran for breakfast at the Embassy Suites, that were cooking omelets in front of the customers, not behind the line. So the customer will come in and they will drop $1, $2 because, they made a great omelet, great service, and so forth, so on. And we couldn't tell them that you couldn't accept tips. See nothing, say nothing, hear nothing.
Sure, that happens, Chef. I used to have a guy who would come in the dining room about once a week, sometimes a little less, twice a month. But he always ordered the same thing, and he got friendly with the servers, and he was always drinking a bunch. And the servers kind of got in the habit of letting him come in the wait station so he could stick his head in the door. And they would even tell him when I had their fish cooking, and they'd say, okay, he's almost halfway, and they'd get up and they'd go to that wait station, they'd stick their head in the door, and he'd bring his buddies. There's a pain in the neck, really, kind of in a way. And then he'd hear him tell his buddies, okay, he's going to flip them. And I'd turn these fish in the skillet, toss them in the air and catch them. And then he'd laugh and then he'd thank me and, well, this is always so fantastic and don't change nothing. And he'd hand me money. you know, shake my head. I mean, I was a cook. I never made any tips as a cook out front, yes, but in the kitchen. But they were letting the guy come in the kitchen and watch the fish get cooked a little bit and watch it get flipped, and he'd hand me a $20 bill. And so it happens once in a while, but not a lot. On catering, sometimes the cook will get serious, nice tips.
Yeah.
Like get some good hourly money, pretty good hourly bucks, and $100, $200 on top of it from the host. That's kind of cool.
We go back to the hotel business, and cooks, when we have big receptions, when they have an action station like a pasta, seafood, flambe bananas, Foster's, a carving, they would usually include an upcharge to the customer of $350 for the action station on top of whatever they chose, and the cook would get $50 in the paycheck for working that action station. It was not a gratuity or tip, but it went to their paycheck for working that station. I forget what it was called, but they stopped doing that a while ago because it was a big legalities behind it. But every
hazardous duty pay.
Yeah, it was $50 to work that action station. You work 5 during the week, extra money in your paycheck, and that did not go to overtime. Okay.
Yeah.
So tip employees, tip wages are calculated differently depending on your state. Some states are required to pay their employees full minimum wage before tips, in which case patrons are expected to tip less or not at all. However, tipping at restaurants is customary throughout most of the United States. So servers are typically only paid a minimum cash wage that is combined with the tip wages to reach the federal minimum wage or more. You should also keep in mind that a certain number of your staff will not receive tips. Typically, the front of the house staff will split their tips from the shift, and back of the house don't receive tips. With that in mind, make sure that your prep cooks and dishwashers are making an hourly wage that is appropriate. Okay, that's why a lot of kitchens, the kitchen staff, it gets paid $14 an hour. If the server might be getting $4 or $5 or maybe $7 because it'll balance it out once they get the gratuities, depending on how much business is coming to the front door. Sometimes servers make way more than even restaurant managers or chefs. I'm like, I've seen servers make over $100,000 a year. I'm like, the hell? Really? Yeah, so, yeah. I'm like,
I've seen restaurants, there's a restaurant here in Bernie, and they factor in the tips with the cost of everything on their menu. And they say, not necessary to tip. We already factored in with the cost of our food. And of course, everything is more expensive.
So, Christian, they're probably paying the waiters like a very different hourly wage, like some nice money hourly, right? Is that what's going on? Or are they are they figuring the tip and then paying that forward to the waiter? How's that work?
I don't know what the hourly, what they get paid hourly there. I just know that every time I go to order on the menu, it says, like they don't allow you to tip on the receipt or anything.
Yeah.
They say that it's put into the cost of food already, the cost of all the menu items.
And
so that's a trend that's been happening a little bit. That's very interesting. I'd like to know more as it goes forward.
The reason why a lot of restaurants have started doing that is because of what we call the 1%ers, or at least that's what Applebee's used to call them, or Chili's, is the 1%ers, the people that tip like, way less than they're supposed to. Like they always leave you like $2 or $1 or something like that and expect you to live off of that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's one reason why a lot of restaurants have started doing that, is they're trying to push so that their servers get the 20% that they're supposed to be getting.
It's worth noting that for many years in Europe, there is not tipping in the restaurants.
Japan's the same way.
Like in France, for instance, it's considered to be a bit of an insult. Like, what do you mean? I don't need your money. I'm a professional waiter. I get paid. I make a nice living. Keep your money. Thank you very much. And it's just a different way of doing business. I don't really know. I've heard that some of the really great service in the restaurants in France is not what it was some years ago now, but they're not in the habit of taking tips over there. Yeah. Christian, you seem to know something about it just now.
Oh yeah, in Japan it's the same way. It's like an insult. Don't even leave money on the table.
Yeah.
He told us, like, don't do that. That's like saying, oh, I have more money than you. You need it more than I do. Here you go. It was how it was briefed to us, but yeah, the whole time I was in Japan for 7 months, I did not tip anybody once.
Yeah, it's all included. That's why the price is sky high, because it's already included the gratuities in it. So yeah, you can factor that in the labor and food costs. So how to offer a fair week's work for your employees, aside from compensation for some employees receiving tips while others don't. It's also important to know that some shifts are more lucrative than others because more customers mean more tips. No matter what kind of food service establishment you have, this is just a fact of life. There's a few ways you can ensure that every person receives an appropriate amount of tips throughout the week. Okay. So again, make sure that you have enough business coming in so your servers are able to sustain and have the jobs, because you got no business, they're making no tips. They're going to quit. They're going to go. Okay. Vary each person's shift time. In most cases, your business will have a busy times and slow times a day. If you own a coffee shop, the early morning hours will likely be most popular as patrons swing by to pick up coffee for breakfast on their way to work. Common sense. And if the owner of a bar, evening will be likely your busiest time. So people wind down and have a beer for a long day, beer day, right? Friday. So keep an open dialogue with your staff about these patterns and make sure everyone gets an opportunity to earn a fair tips by switching up their schedule. The bartenders make a bukus of money at nighttime, especially when you have the third, fourth in your system, like, give me another one, right? Okay. Coffee not so much.
I used to do bartending, and one night I walked out with $700 in my pocket.
Yeah.
In one night.
Yeah.
That's pretty nice. That was some serious hustle, wasn't it? I mean,
yeah, I was busting my butt. I was definitely busting my butt, but I mean, it was worth it in the end.
Yeah.
Yeah, sure.
One of the best ways to approach this difference between shifts is to spread your staff out evenly, allowing equal opportunities for your senior staff and new hires to experience a mix of different times of the day. This would also ensure that everyone gets ample experience and is properly trained on all different responsibilities that come with each shift in time, which will ultimately leave more room for flexibility when it comes to employees filling in for each other. Okay. Always.
I had that going for me with experiencing different parts of the day. They kept me on night shift on a deployment. I didn't see the sun for almost a month, and then they rotated me around. Like, okay, you need to work with somebody new. This is kind of I brought it up like, hey, it's kind of weird. I'd have to wake up real early and go stand out on the catwalk to see the sun. I feel like a vampire working on the night shift all the time, but.
Yeah.
I feel you, Christian. We had the same thing, mine was longer. Like I think there was like 3-4 months or something like that, because it was night shift and stuff like that, where I didn't see the sun for like 3 to 4 months. And when I did, it was like, oh my God, what is that?
Yeah.
So switch it up a little bit so they can experience, because, being stuck in one shift, sometimes, you get the employees that are the line staff that are dead set on a certain shift that want to change, especially the breakfast cooks. You can't put breakfast cooks to work the nighttime. They're just a different animal, different kind of breed. You can't even use the nighttime cooks to work in the morning, because again, they're used to going to bed maybe 2, 3 o'clock in the morning after the bar closes. So getting up at 4 o'clock in the morning, it's a sudden change. Some of them will adjust and will do that, but for the most part, it's just a different mentality, different need. If you are one of those that, like you say, Kristen, you can go for it. You get to see different kinds of worlds from AM to PM and in between.
When you're teaching yourself the stuff you need to be an executive chef, it is a good idea to switch through some shifts. Yeah. You don't want to be an executive chef in a small hotel and not know how to cook breakfast. And you need to know breakfast in order to supervise somebody or train them or show them or help them when they're in the weeds and stuff like that. You should work the night line in a fancy restaurant. You should be the banquet chef. You should really make the rounds and kind of learn those jobs and nail them down while you develop your managing skills and all that kind of stuff. But definitely there's folks that are wired for the early mornings and folks that are not wired for them. And putting a breakfast chef, you're right, putting a breakfast cook on the night banquet thing, they may not be very good at kind of keeping alertness, and they may have a bad spirit about it too. They may just feel like, I don't want to do this. It's not, I go home in 1 in the afternoon. I'm not just coming in 1 in the afternoon. So to some degree, even though we need people to do the shifts we need them to do, what you're really looking for is to get people in the shifts that suit them and try to keep them where they are productive and where they're liking it, right? Happy cooking, good restaurant.
Flexibility is a big thing, and who knows, something goes bad or you're understaffed or something. Now you have night experience and you know how to close or open or prepare for the next shift to come in. It's good to have those skills already in line because you'll never know when you get thrown on the scene or anything. And it's good to have like a background because what if the manager says, oh, okay, I'm going to throw you on the scene. It's a whole test for you to maybe get a promotion or something. Now that he sees that you react and you do good and have experience, now you might get that promotion.
Yes.
Money, more valuable because you're right. That means that you're more retainable, and the ones that are going to probably hit the door first are the ones that don't, and you're the ones going to be more up to keep that job and you have your job security.
So right now is a great example. There are a lot of kitchens that used to have 10 people, now they got 2. They used to have 60 people, now they got 8. And the person that has great flexibility, willingness to work different shifts, and ability to do different types of jobs, those are the persons that have the best chance, of keeping their work.
Yeah, because honestly, with all this Corona stuff going around, it'd probably be the best time to get promoted in restaurants and stuff, considering people are quitting and stepping down and.
Tradable jacks. The more you know, the more valuable you become, and the more you can get paid in the next job. The more you're going to be launching yourself to the future, and the more you're going to be able to adapt. And like I said, be that awesome executive chef or owner, because now you know how to run every single station, and you can develop a sense of urgency, your schedule, and also do your job trainings and your training manuals. So yeah, definitely. Okay. One more. Schedule an appropriate amount of people. You need to make sure that more people are scheduled during the busy times and fewer people during the slow times. Not only does this make the division of tips fair, but also ensures that there are enough employees to complete the necessary tasks in relation to the demand. If you're not sure what times of the day are busiest, most POS systems can track that transaction activity throughout the day, so you can pull grabs and see exactly when your traffic is at its peaks and lows. That's if you're not in the kitchen in tune with your staff.
And that's a big thing. That's one thing I hate is when we are overcrowded and the manager comes up behind you, taps you on the shoulder and say, hey, we got too many people, go home. That is the most annoying thing.
They don't know how to make the schedule. They don't know how to anticipate.
You feel like you're guilty. You feel guilty pulling out on your homies that are still in there trying to bust it out and try to get all the junk done.
Yeah, basically.
Yeah.
Comparable to when they pull somebody off a flight and say, "Oh, we sold too many tickets." This whole family's gonna have to get off.
And he says, "Like, man, that's from my pocket. I can't go home yet. Right? I need this cash flow, right?"
Yeah.
All right, guys. It is 8:20. Let's take our much needed 10-minute break. Okay, and then we'll come back and we'll go further. But again, it's all about being more wise, how to create a schedule, how to make sure you have enough coverage, how to take a look at the revenue, how to spend the dollars, and how to not to go over the budget. Okay. Cool.
Cool. Yep.
All right. What is it? 8:25. Come out at 8:20. We'll come back at 8:30. Chef Gary will do a roll call. Okay. Make sure you're visible again so we can go forward. Okay, guys. In the meantime, what do we do here?
Chef?
Yes.
I have a question.
I have an answer.
Okay, I noticed that the readings moving forward have been locked. Is there a reason for that?
What do you mean the readings have been locked?
Well, like for next week, for week 4, I can't access it. It says it doesn't open up until Monday.
What?
Yes.
I'm sure those links, I'm assuming they could be opened and closed and managed just like the knowledge checks and stuff, can't they?
Well, no, I can't open it at all. It says it will not be open.
I know that if you're locked out, you can't change that. I'm saying to Chef, I think we would change it.
Yeah, we can edit. I didn't know. Again, this is a course that has been designed for the online and is not what we used to do. So I'll take a look at him, not tonight, tomorrow, and open him up. I'll see. Is just week 4 or the rest of the weeks are closed?
Well, I didn't check the rest because I just assumed since this one was closed, which is weird because I was able to go through the others without any problems. So I thought maybe that was something that was newly implemented. So that's why I'm asking. So I didn't even check, but I can check real quick.
Okay, thank you, Mercedes. It's very likely that when they set that up, we didn't set the class up, and when they set it up, they could have just had all the material in there and never gone back to edit and unlock those and so forth. So it's definitely something we can do.
Yeah, I'll go back and
I'll
look
check
at
real
it
quick.
and open it. Okay.
But yeah, you can't do it, but we can. When we look, if they need to be open, I'm pretty sure we can do it.
Yes, Chef Miguel and Chef Gary.
Yeah.
After week 3, all of the other ones will not let you take the test or do anything like that.
Oh yes, those knowledge checks are closed. Like I was telling you guys yesterday, the day before yesterday, all the knowledge checks from week 1, 2, and 3 are open. They closed May 8th. I'm not. I wasn't able to open up the rest. I will open up this weekend for you guys to go over them. So maybe that's what you're talking about with Ms. Mercedes. I'm going to go on Saturday tomorrow and open them all up and close them on the 8th.
Great. Okay.
It's not just the knowledge checks that I'm referring to, Chef. The actual reading material I wasn't able to open.
That's weird.
Right. Danny's referring to knowledge checks. We know that your original question was about reading material. We'll check it.
Yeah. Okay. And I just checked week 5 is a discussion. I don't see any reading for week 5, and I assume that's because we'll be heavy into our projects. And I'll check week 6 just a moment.
Yeah, I'm in week 4 right now. There is research materials. That's weird. I wonder why they're closed.
Also, it says extra credit, but there's no extra credit listed. Is that something that you guys are going to put out for us to be able to do? No, so there's no extra credit being offered? Okay.
Only the surveys. Remember that. Week 5, Monday. Okay, they go live. I mean, week 6. Yeah, because I don't want that to deter from your final project. That's about 20% of your final grade, just like in foundations. I was telling you guys I don't give any quizzes, stuff like that, because I want you guys to focus on your practical. Some instructors do. I really don't. I want you guys to focus on your final project in this block because it's quite extensive and it's required more than what's on the normal.
Yeah. So week 6 is closed as well. It says it will open on Monday the 27th as well.
Chef, it's okay to open it earlier, isn't it? Or is there some reason we shouldn't? I think we should. Okay. So the readings and the knowledge checks, we got to look into that and get those all opened up through the rest of the weeks.
Yeah, knowledge checks going to take some time because I got to go and open them up for each one of you guys instead of going for the whole class in general.
Wow, that's weird.
The other ones, okay.
Okay, thank you, Chef.
You're welcome.
Okay, see you guys in a little bit.
Goddamn, internet's going.
That's weird, Chef. So, Miss Tia, you see who's with us?
Yeah. Earlier than like fucking 4 o'clock. Oh my god, get out of my room, bro. I'm setting an alarm. I'm gonna need you to get out of my room.
Yeah, so I'm looking at the Chef Gary. I don't know how to edit it or open them up.
Hit that little wheel. Can you share a screen with me, Chef?
Yeah, I go to the editing, but it doesn't give me the option. So I just asked Chef Tammy. She knows how to navigate around.
Well, I've done it if I have it in front of me. If you can put it up, I can probably get us through it. Of course, in about a minute, we'll run out of time to be going back into class. So, okay, we can look at it later on, or else check on it tomorrow.
Yeah, we'll go over it tonight after class.
Yep.
It's weird though. Very weird.
Guys, can you make yourselves visible, please? I want to call roll.
So, Chef Miguel, I just checked my school email.
Thank you.
And apparently, we are going to be going for the next block.
You cut out, Tia. What?
I just checked my school email, and it told me that for the next block that we are going to be online because it gave me my classes and everything.
Womp womp.
Andre, you there?
Yes, Chef. I'm here, Chef.
Thank you. Okay, Chef. Missing Austin and Cam looks like. Otherwise, we're Good to go.
Hey, Chef, I think you're talking on mute.
Yes, I was. Thank you very much. Okay. So Cam and Austin, right? Okay, cool. Okay, so just like you saw on the practice, make sure you have enough coverage. You don't want to have like the schedule that we just went over a few minutes ago, that you're having a skeleton crew on your line staff. Okay. Well, it may seem like a good idea to compensate for slower times by offering higher hourly rates during the times where tips are sparse. Chances are that your slower shifts are less strenuous for your staff. So it makes sense that they should make more money for serving more customers. Be careful on that one. You don't want to get into a bind of like, well, you were paying me X amount on this time of the year. Why are you not paying the same amount on this time of the year? I'm still making tips, you know. So that's the fine line between offering too much money per hour. And in a case like that, some staff might want to take a vacation. They want to have enjoyed their time off. So you're not buying to increase their paid hourly rate to keep them on board. Okay, remember, you got to cut back. Conversely, any downtime can be spent cleaning or taking care of other important tasks. So it's still a valuable, productive time. But you probably don't need 3 people to mop the floor. And if you have too many employees sitting around, you'll need to split that small amount of tips they made and each go home with pennies. On this one, I'm going to give you my own personal feelings and thoughts about this one. Front of the house, they work for gratuities. It really, yes, hourly wage does matter, and they take that in consideration. But when you're trying to bring in the front of the house staff to deep clean the kitchen, it's probably not going to work, even if you increase their pay a little bit more, because they live off gratuities. They don't want to come in and bust a tail to deep clean and scrub the whole entire front of the house or kitchen. That has been my experience with front of the house staff. I don't know about you guys. Have you guys have that experience too? Come across that part of an industry where you have front of the house that don't want to do any deep cleaning?
Can you say that again for me, Chef, please?
Has anybody come across any front of the house that when it's real slow, you're going to bring them on a schedule, but there's no work and there's no customers coming in? If you're going to have them do some deep cleaning, are they going to grunt and complain and want to go home, or they want to stick around and get paid the same amount of money and do some elbow grease to clean the front of the house and the kitchen?
They gripe and complain and leave.
Yep.
They don't want to do nothing. They're like, oh, the kitchen can do it.
And most of the time we hear, it's not my job.
Complain, still do it.
Anyway?
I've had people who grunt and complain, but they still do it because they still want the job.
Yeah. I had worked with bosses that it was so slow in the front of the restaurant, even though there was wait staff in the front, serving or non-serving, because there was no customers, he would come into my kitchen and pull my dishwasher to go and vacuum or clean the bar from the front of the house. While the dishwasher had his regular responsibilities in the kitchen, he would pull them off to go and deep clean the drains, the sinks, the whole entire bar. Pull them off the kitchen to do front of the house staff job.
Oh, hell no.
It doesn't sound too good.
No, it did not. Because here I am thinking, what? You know, even though we're not busy, the dishwasher still got a job to do. Maybe he's going to pull all the metro shelves away from the wall, pull everything out, clean the wall, the baseboards, the floor underneath it, clean that shelf, and put everything back. If it's not clean, run it again. So it's a lot of deep cleaning in the back. So for the front of the house to come in and yak my dishwasher and having go spend 4 hours deep cleaning the bar is like, again, front of the house staff work for tips. They don't want to do any deep clean. They don't want to do any elbow grease, right? Yeah. They're there for the tips, only to make money in gratuities. Okay. So conversely, any downtime again can be spent cleaning, valuable productive time. Okay. So be careful with that one. Okay. If you're going to bring him, emphasize. Hey, by the way, guys, if you guys want to work an extra day, or you guys want to pull your hours, maybe I'll change the job code. You get paid X amount of money, but you're going to come in to help us deep clean the front of the house. So come in your jeans, your tennis shoes, and maybe a t-shirt. Don't come in a uniform. And that way they know when they're going to come in exactly what they're going to do. If they choose to come in and work under those conditions. If not, then maybe schedule an extra dishwasher. But front of the house pretty much doesn't really deep clean the front. Maybe the vacuum, sweep once in a while. Not talk bad about him. So keep some people on call too. While keeping some staff on call is no ideal, this approach can ensure that you have the help you need if things get unexpectedly busy. Similarly, don't be afraid to send people home if things are slow, right, Mr. Christian?
Yeah.
You're the boss. Yeah.
Well, they're not doing anything. Why are they there?
Right. Well, it's no good to ask employees to shuffle their personal lives around and accommodate last-minute requests. Being upfront with them about staying flexible for a few hours on Saturday is already every now and then. Also, you can encourage managers to step in if things get crazy, since they have a higher hourly pay rate. There's no wrong when the manager is up in the front waiting tables or serving alcoholic beverages. If you decide to cut back the front of the house, if you get snapped from an unexpected bus tour that came in to your restaurant, or some high school kids or whatever food traffic dropped in, then you can bet your hiney, you better be out there serving tables and waiting tables, right? Same thing with the chef. If the chef decides to send the cooks home, because if it's the slow days, guess what's going to happen with the chef? He's going to take over the grill, saute, whatever station needs to be done. He's going to slide in. He's going to push right through the busy rush, right? Good. Always hands-on, okay? Hire more than one manager. If you have $24,000, you're only spending $7,000, then you have money to play with. Why not hire another manager and make sure that he or she is sustainable? You can afford them. Take some of the pressure off your manager by hiring 2 co-managers. That way you can have one manager on duty at all times to address any issues that may be too demanding for your regular staff time. While they may seem like paying 2 manager wages, it is not beneficial to your business. Having a manager present at all times can go in a long way towards improving a customer's experience, and as well as now providing a positive experience for your customers is the only way your business will succeed. But be careful, don't overhire too many managers, because if you do, you're going to start dipping into your labor pool dollars. Make sure that you have enough revenue coming in and you can afford the other manager. Okay. And if you do hire them, don't hire them on the same schedule. Shingle them. Okay. Make sure it's an ample coverage, because the worst thing that can happen if something happens in the front and the server is asking for a manager to override something in the POS system and there's nobody to be found. Right? So why have 2, right? Maybe they have taking a smoking break. Okay. Remember that your employees have personal lives. Believe it or not, we're all human beings. We're not numbers. Okay. So whether they're working around school, a family, or a second job, chances are your employees all have different scheduling needs. Ideally, you can get a sense of each person's unique schedule when they're first hired. That way, you can staff your establishment with people with varying availability. But even then, life happens and schedules are likely to change. So when it comes to making a fair schedule, keep an open mind and check your employees' availability. Okay. Make sure that if you are going to bring in somebody and they got to pick up their child at the daycare at 3 o'clock, don't try to schedule them at between 3 and 11, because that's what time they got to go home and pick their kid, or somebody's taking care of a loved one. Make sure that at least you work with them and try to be as flexible as you can without hurting the business. If there are the employees that do work for your establishment. Okay. Make sure your employees have time to rest. Ensuring that each staff member has a fair amount of time goes off a long way towards preventing stress and fatigue. You should hire enough people so that everyone can have 2 days off per week. And if so, those days can be consecutive. That's ideal. Also make sure that you only ever ask the same person to close and open for the next day if it's an emergency, okay? We call those the close and open, only an emergency. You want your staff to have enough time to feel well rested before returning to work. You should always also come up with the clear system of your staff can use to request time off for your family events and vacation. Remember, maybe you can have a clipboard with a sheet that says request days off, name, print, date, and then maybe you initial it and have it on file just in case. So on 2 days off, did I share the story, you guys, with one of the interns that I work with? Or was it one of my fellow CA alumni? It's one of my fellow alumni.
Can't say I remember that, Chef.
Okay. Anyways, I was working in the kitchen, my first sous chef gig, and there was actually four alumni working in the same place. 2 sous chefs, a lead cook, and an intern. Okay, so the lead cook, his name was Scott, younger kid, clean cut. So it was busy, summertime. That's business and man schedule. So we working our tails off according to the business. Some of us didn't have any days off and working 7 days straight in a row. So when we finally got a day off or 2 days off, the chef was trying to do his best according to the business. So he was giving Scott split days off along with the rest of us. So the kid's name was Scott. Okay. He comes to the chef and tells him, Chef, if you please, can I request on my schedule my 2 days consecutive together, if all possible? Is it because split, I'm not able to rest and let my mind rest. So I want to be able to come back on my Monday and be at my peak performance. You're muted, Chef Gary.
Chef, as you just expressed what happened with that person who came to, most of that dropped out. Can you go back over that guy's coming in to request about his days? What did he say?
He said, he told the chef that if all possible, can the chef schedule his 2 days off together consecutively, not split, because he wanted to come back on this Monday at peak performance.
Okay.
So the chef granted Scott the request on having his 2 days off together. He put him in the schedule for the following week. All right, I'm just going to give him a Monday, Tuesday off and come back Wednesday, Monday. So he comes back, Scott comes back Wednesday, and he's supposed to be, again, according to his own words, at his peak performance. He came back Wednesday, discombobulated, maybe at 70%, 60%, not 100% peak performance.
So did he come back hungover, or was he just not all there? Did something happen?
Not all there. He got 2 days off, and he was coming back with not really gung-ho, ready to go, full of energy. He was like, and the stuff that he was making several mistakes. So it doesn't. Sometimes it doesn't work. If you are one of those that believes in giving your staff 2 days off if all possible, like I am, do so. If somebody asks to be have the 2 days off, do explain the meetings that the busy times are coming. So their schedule might change a little bit. And you may also have a disclaimer at the bottom of your schedule. Schedule might change according to business, okay? That way, in case somebody comes in and tells you, Chef, can I have 2 days off together? I was like, well, we talked about this week. It's going to be busy. We have X amount of business. I will try to accommodate you the following week. But this week, I really need you this week on those days that you're here. And unfortunately, I have to give you a split days off. If you talk to them on a one-on-one basis like that, then most likely will go, okay, no problem. Then I'll wait till next week. But you better hold your end of the bargain and come around the following week. Do provide him for the 2 days off, if that's the right way to go.
Yep.
Right? Okay. So again, give them enough time to rest, because we're not machines. We're not robots. We're not superhuman beings. We all get tired. We all get burnt out, right? So what positions do you need? When scheduling a shift, you want one or more people from each of these categories. Back of the house manager, this can be a kitchen manager or KM, executive chef, EC, head pastry chef, sous chef, or similar. Front of the house manager, this can be a general manager, GM, a floor manager, bar manager, lead server, or similar. Kitchen staff, prep cooks, line cooks, dishwashers, front of the house staff. These are counter staff, servers, bartenders, and bussers. Okay, so figure out what you need on your schedule to make sure you have the proper coverage and the proper filling. Okay. Determining operating hours. You don't want workers working for more than 40 hours a week, because when you do, you have to pay overtime. We went over that. Overtime is an evil necessity. Okay. Thus, if your operating hours are more than 8 hours of your work employees, or more work more than 5 hours a week, you need more than one shift per day. In addition, you want an hour of overlap between shifts. Like the schedule we just went over, right? There was way too much overlap, right, Ms. Tia? They were coming in at 2 o'clock, and the morning cooks were not going home until 5. There was probably no space for them to work. Okay?
Well, and in some states too, you don't have to go over 40 hours. Some states pay overtime after every 8 hours.
California is one of them. After 8 hours, any day of the week, it's considered overtime.
Right, so you could have a week where you only work 39 hours, but you had a couple of short shifts, maybe 6 hours each, but you had a couple of long shifts, 9.5 hours, 9.5 hours twice. There's 3 hours of overtime, even though you never hit 40.
Yeah, because you can work, so if you work your 40 hours and you work those 40 hours in 5 days, but then they call you in and you need to, and they have you, and you can work that 6th day. That 6th day is automatically time and a half. If you work that 7th day, that 7th day is double time.
Mm-hmm.
Oh.
Yep.
Per hour. Like, just, that's how much you're getting. So,
yeah. Wow.
And I love that about California. On the 7th day, you betcha, right? Cali, it's double time, not time and a half, double time. Ka-ching, ka-ching, ka-ching. Okay. So overtime. Yeah, I forgot about double time. Man, it's been a long time. Note, your operating hours are about 2 hours longer than you think they are. Most restaurants need about an hour to set up before they open, and about an hour to clean up after they close. In other words, if you open from 6 hours, your operating hours are more than 8 hours. Just on the schedule that we were talking about, if they open for dinner at 5, they close at 10, right? You can bring it maybe at 3 until 11 o'clock, or 3:30 to 11:30. Make sure you have enough coverage, enough time for them to set up in the morning, before the dinner shift, and enough time for them to close afterwards. You don't want to be caught into like, oh, my schedule says 11 o'clock, but I still got tables coming in at 11 o'clock, and the host says, oh yeah, come in, no problem. 2 minutes till close. It needs a 20 top coming in, ordering steaks, well done. Now you got to stay more than 11 o'clock. That's overtime. It happens. So be more careful when you schedule. Make sure that you have coverage. Like TSA, shingle them. Maybe 3:30, maybe 4 o'clock. Maybe have somebody come in at 4 o'clock, 4 to 12. So that way, in case somebody comes in, there's an ample coverage. So you don't have to worry about the whole entire crew staying until 12 o'clock midnight if they're supposed to go home at 11:30. Okay. For example, your restaurant's open from 7 a.m. to 6 p.m. Okay. This means you'll need staff from on hand from 6 a.m. to 7 p.m. You can schedule 2 shifts, one 6 a.m. to 1, and one from 12 to 7. Okay. Alternatively, you could schedule more staff on a swing shift. A swing shift that bridges the 2 other shifts. You have to one shift from 6 to 12:30, another one from 12:30, and a shift in one from 12:30 to 7, and a swing from 11 a.m. to 2. That can be called the roundsman. The hospital, my cooks were coming in at what time? 12 o'clock, and we're working till 7 because the tray line for the patients' meals were happening at 5:30. The dinner for the dining room was open at 5 o'clock, and it would close at 8. So he was there right about until 7, right before they close, should they need anything. That extra hour, the grill cook can go ahead and do what needs to be done to sustain the business. Okay. A longer example: you're running a food truck. for those who want to have a food truck. You need 3 employees on hand at all times. You should always have enough employees to cover every shift, okay? You're open 7 days a week, so keep any of your employees from having to work 7-day work weeks. You have 4 total employees, your schedule might look like this, okay? Here we go. Sunday, you got Elmo, Bert, Ernie, and Oscar, right? Fictional names, right, Chef Gary? Right, Miss Tia? Right, Miss Mercedes?
Yep.
Yeah, Chef.
What's the name of the food truck? Sesame Street Eats?
No more forest, no more shade. So.
Just a little shade, just a little.
That's all right. That's all right. So yeah, maybe monster cookies. You got Elmo, Bert, Ernie, and Oscar. Sunday, 4 to 10, 4 to 10, 4 to 10, and 4 to 10. Monday, you got 3. Bernie, Ert, and Oscar. Tuesday, Elmo, Bert, and Oscar. Wednesday, you got all 4 of them. Thursday, you got 3. Friday, you got 4. Saturday, you got 1.
Okay, but why do you only have 1 on Saturday?
Bingo.
So take 1 from Sunday and take 1 from Friday and 1 from Wednesday, and then you have all of your days covered.
Right.
Sorry.
No, that's a good eye. It's a good eye. And again, not everybody catches it. If you do, speak up, guys. Like you said, why only 1 Saturday? Isn't Saturday supposed to be the busiest days? Right?
Chef, you could have a situation where your Saturday is super slow, and then you might consider like only 1 cook, but you'd be there in case a little pop happens or something. But yeah, you have to look at every day and figure out where your business is likely to be, and you got to have it covered, don't you? You got to have enough people when you think the business is going to be there.
What else can you do? How can you
you already know you can stagger them, so.
You need to hire 1 person.
Chef Miguel, with the 4 staff members you have, honestly, like, the way that I'm looking at it is, say if we go by the regular recipe of, Saturday, Friday, Saturday being the busiest day and everything. If I was to schedule this, I'd do, Elmo's going to do Sunday, Monday, and have Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday off, and then work Friday, Saturday. Then I'm going to have Aaron run the same schedule as Elmo, and then Bert is going to do, he's going to do Sunday off, Monday, Tuesday off, and then run Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. And then Oscar is going to run the same shift as Bert. And that way everybody gets a 3-day weekend, and then everybody covers it every day. I'll have two people on Tuesday and Wednesday, and I'll have 2 people on Monday, and there'll be 2 people on Thursday, and then Friday and Saturday will be covered completely.
Working in the kitchen is almost like playing a game of chess. You got to have your right key players in place. Same thing with the schedule. When you take a look at the schedule, you got to be able to, like you just went over it, how to switch them around, how to move them around, how to make sure that they have 2 days off instead of overworking them and burning them out, and make sure you have coverage. Saturday might be the slowest one, but in the industry, it's proven that it's going to want to be your busiest days. Maybe you generate $7,000 on Saturday. Maybe Monday generate 2,000. So always take a look at your numbers. Again, go back to the numbers, go back to the forecast, go back to the check average, the daily sales. What is your strongest days, and accommodate your schedule. One on Saturday might be a good idea, but maybe 2 better, just in case it might be a little pop here and there.
But I've always learned too that it's easier to send them home than to get them to come in. So I'm gonna schedule appropriately, and if we're not busy, you can go home.
But
Chef, can I chime in for just a second?
Go ahead.
There is a documentary and a study that shows if you have staff members on a 4-day work week, they're more reluctant to come in when you need to call them on a day off. They're more reluctant to come in than if, say, that you work them 5 days a week and then you call them on a Saturday, the only Saturday or only 2 days they get off, they're more than likely going to say no because, you know, they only get 2 days off. But if they have 3 days off, they're more reluctant to come in because they're like, oh, well, my boss takes care of me. He makes sure that I have all these days off so I can spend them with my family. And he was like, I'm more reluctant to come and help my boss than I am if I work 5 days a week and only have 2 days off. And you call me on
to come in, more likely to come in.
Okay, that's what I was just gonna ask, Chef.
And as an example, there's a huge insurance and financial planning concern called USAA. Some of you folks are military, you know a little bit about them. They do insurance for anybody who's his military family or who has been a part of a military family. And it's kind of membership and all that, automobile insurance, house insurance, business insurance, investments, blah, blah, blah. And I used to know somebody who worked there. And in the 1980s, that guy worked 4 10-hour days. They had breaks. They had a lunch break. They kind of had some flexibility in their schedule, but they could work a whole bunch of years there, 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, build retirement and everything while working 4 days a week. And the story I heard was they loved it. They had some flexibility. Every weekend they had enough time to do personal things and household things and do some work and have some goof off time. And they didn't really mind that longer day. They felt that longer day was real nice to live with. Little longer day, 3 days off every week. They loved it. Yes, Mercedes, call it a compressed schedule just now, right?
I mean, they currently do that at Samsung. They
I wouldn't be surprised because I've heard people like it a lot.
So in this case, make sure you get away from that. You have enough coverage on Saturday. Don't schedule everybody off on Saturday because, like you said, it's going to be hard for them to come in and work for you on a Saturday because if you give them a day off, I don't speak English. My phone died. Battery's dead. Right? I lost my keys. I got a flat tire. Million excuses. The goldfish ran away. He wants swimming in the toilet seat. I don't know.
By the way, Danny mentioned this a day or two ago, 3 days ago, maybe, didn't you, Danny Bolton, when discussing your idea that you'd like maybe consider try to have a 4-day schedule for people?
Yeah.
Anyway, we can do things a lot of ways, but I kind of like the idea. I'd much rather schedule people 4 days, even if their day's a little longer, than try to schedule them 6.
Yeah, I feel the same way.
Burn out and get tired of it.
I feel the same way, Chef, because I've worked a lot in my life, and it just seems like every day, like especially when they're flip-flopping times on you, and you're working 5 days a week, it gets kind of annoying because you'll get out of work at like 12, then turn around and have to show up at like 7 a.m. the next morning.
Yep.
And it's like, holy crap, man. And you're just exhausted and worn out. And I would rather just do 10-hour days and just be done with it and have a 3-day weekend.
Here's an example of I would argue, a very poor labor practice. We were a bunch of sous chefs running departments for the big shot executive chef in a fancy hotel many years ago. And that guy was in the habit of working the sous chefs about 65 hours a week. He said 60 when he hired you, but in reality, you got in there a few weeks, you thought it was going to be about 65, 66 hours. And he said to me one day that he could always tell a sous chef needed a day off when he started screwing stuff up, making mistakes, forgetting things, burning stuff, not getting the party out on time. That's how he knew his sous chef needed a day off. To me, that was really stupid and terrible. I mean, the way the sous chef should just have enough days off in order to be clear-headed and happy with the job. And this guy's saying, no, I'm going to run them until they start screwing stuff up, and that's when I'm going to give them a day off.
Yeah.
And I thought that's really poor management and thoughtless. Yeah.
The compressed schedules, I worked with those two in the hospital. So the company came in, we did it, and started giving the staff, instead of working we call them catering associates, who deliver the meals from the floors to the patients. They were working the 40 hours a week. The hospital went to a different system using compressed schedules, 3-day work days, 12 hours a day. Oh, they threw a fit because, you know, again, if you're a single parent with one or two kids, who's going to pick them up from daycare? Who's going to pick them up from school? Who's going to be there? So there was a challenge on that part. On the business side, it makes sense to, you know, knock their schedule down. They're working 36 hours a week instead of 40. And they were covering the breakfast and lunch and dinner part. And, you know, they went back to 3 days a week, 3 12-hour shifts. It made it happen, but they lost several because, again, their lifestyles could not be modified to what the schedule was. And maybe that was a way of them weeding them out or getting rid of them. I don't know. All I knew was it was a big issue. There was a lot of complaining, and people just said, screw it, I'm not going to be here. So you got to be careful when you go to compressed schedule. Again, people want to at least, you know, be able to enjoy the sunlight. If you're working from 6 a.m. to like 7 or 8 p.m. when the sun goes down that early, no sunlight, right?
Yeah. That's
Miguel, one thing that's why I was saying the 4-day schedule, because the 4-day schedule is about 10-hour work day, and then on top of that, they get 3 days off. But also, you can afford to pay them more than the average restaurant because they're not working as many hours. And then on top of that, you can also then they can afford to do daycare and stuff of that nature. And then on top of that, I was looking into something online for businesses that they have started up for daycare. Like if you're working or whatever, they have like an insurance plan that say that your business covers like 10 or 20% of the cost of daycare.
Yeah, they'll have those benefits. So just gotta, you know, make sure that you can offer some of those incentives if you want to go the route. But again, you got to explain at the beginning what the schedule entails and how it's going to play out. So don't catch them off guard. So, you know, be transparent as you can.
Yeah.
Okay. Overtime, again, 40 hours plus equals time and a half. Unless you're in California, more than 40 hours a week is overtime that becomes double time, ka-ching, 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 right? It's an evil necessity. You saw it, I had it, I did it. I worked my cooks overtime, they loved it, it was great. But again, it all depends on the sales coming in, on the revenue. If you have it, you can afford it, go for it. If you don't have it, try to reduce it as much as you can, okay? So anyways, you're paying the line cook $10 an hour. His wage will be 10 out for the first 40 hours, 15 for the hours after that. In California, it's every single day above 8 hours is considered overtime, okay? Cross-training is another way to bridge the gap if someone calls in sick or quits. The more skills employees have, the more flexible they can be with their hours. If you only have one person who can work at a saute station, you always need them on hand. But if you have 4 different employees that can saute, you need one of them to staff to give in any other given shift. So here's a list to keep in mind while making your schedule. Determine how many of your employees fall into restrictions due to labor regulations, such as hours allotted to minors. Also with minors, keep in mind, not just minors, what about the elderly that are getting their Social Security? They kind of semi-retired, but they go back to the workforce, and they can only work a certain amount of hours a week. You gotta be careful with them, okay? You can't discriminate.
So if
either.
you draw a retirement check, you can't start working a bunch of overtime and a full 40-hour week or something like that?
You're semi-retired, you can only work X amount of hours a week. You can't go without those hours.
Right. So when you start taking Social Security, the government limits how many hours you can work without penalty. And if you work above, I can't remember if they do it by hours or if they do it by total dollars in a year. Like they start taxing your dollars above a certain amount at a higher rate. I mean, I don't know the numbers exactly, but it's something like, for instance, you're drawing X dollars every month on Social Security. You can go back in the workforce or stay in the workforce and you can work, but your regular hours, say you work in 30 hours and it's taxed at the regular rate that would your tax bracket would indicate. But then if you go above a certain amount, they tax those hours more heavily, right?
So be careful when you hire the semi-retired. You don't want them to overwork them or overpay because they'll pay this penalty. Sam will tell you, I can't work these hours. I'm sorry. Okay. So, and again, the schedule indicate the days off. Figure out what roles need to be filled to different points during the day. Make sure you stagger your manager's schedules and everyone's schedules for that matter. Fill out a shift so that it's ample coverage all day. Calculate your FTEs, full-time equivalent, for accounting purposes. While this is a basic example with just a few employees and shifts, larger establishments will, of course, have more people and more moving parts. Having a larger staff can certainly complicate things, but also gives you more flexibility to shuffle things around in a way that it will work best for you. I'll give you guys an example. I had a lot of staff. Restaurant scheduling software. Again, you can buy one or you can create your own one and save that dollar. Well, it's possible to lay out your schedule manually. There are programs that can save you a lot of time and hassle as you create your schedule each week. Okay. Businesses or scheduled software can be a massive time saver. There are very variety of places you can find those software, so take some time to shop around and pick what works best for your needs. Some programs are designed to work with any food service setup, like 7 shifts. Meanwhile, other programs are made for specific demographics, like independent restaurateurs, such as Schedulefly. There's no universal right answer when it comes to making the schedule. You just have to pick one that works for you. 7 shift or Schedulefly. Remember those names, 7 shift or Schedulefly. You don't want to use the software? Consider using the old-fashioned method of a calendar, employee roster, and a little bit more time. Your staff schedule will likely see frequent changes. It's always good to give your employees as much notice as possible. So plan on posting your schedule at least, again, 2 weeks in advance. One popular method for posting schedules is to use a whiteboard with the grade lines. You can transcribe your printed schedule onto a larger whiteboard, then let your staff trade shifts as much as they can please. Make sure that you monitor overtime and schedule for minors. Understand the law. Prior to creating an employee schedule, you will need to familiarize yourself with all state employment laws pertaining to work hours, employee leave, overtime pay, and age requirements. Okay. Work scheduling for minors. Food service jobs are some of the most popular positions for teenagers. In fact, many of people's first job is at a restaurant. Hello. Washing dishes or waiting tables. As a restaurant owner, you will likely receive applications for job inquiries from people under the age of 18. It's important to know the legal guidelines for employing minors. Again, back then, I could only work 24 hours a week. It was pissing me off because I wanted more money. Okay. FTE, measuring your work hours in the context of full-time equivalent, is beneficial for accounting purposes. Accounting, FTE, that's a lingo. This approach is popular for all kinds of businesses that employ many part-time employees, in addition to making things clear when tax time comes around. Calculating FTEs can ensure that you have enough coverage for each shift without employing too many people. You want to make sure that you can provide each person with enough hours to make the job worth their while, without overworking them or needing them to go into overtime. By calculating your FTE equivalent, you can more easily predict what kind of hours each person will work and how much training you're invested in that position. Example of FTE, you have 3 employees and they work 50 hours, 40 hours, and 10 hours per week, totaling 100 hours. Assuming a full-time employee works 40 hours a week, your full-time equivalent calculation is 100 hours divided by 40 hours. 2.5 FTEs. Again, the hours divided by 40 hours. So how many on staff you have? Total hours divided by the 40 hours. Okay. If all this information is making your head spin, just remember that a restaurant schedule doesn't always have to be overly complicated. Best way to avoid headaches around your staff schedule is to create a cultural accountability in your restaurant by earning the trust and respect of your employees. You can create motivated work environment where your staff will want to show up on time. Mine did all the time. Building it, well, except for those two that I had to let go. A trusted team of reliable employees is the best thing you can do to alleviate stress when scheduled time comes around. Combine your staff's accountability with scheduling software and other systems to keep you organized, and you'll be an expert scheduler in no time. Practice makes perfect. Okay. So anyways, overview, set your hours, the kind of products you sell, as well as the competitive landscape. You will determine your hours of operation. Will you be closed on 1 day a week, 2 days a week, on certain holidays? Most retail locations do a significant amount of business on weekends, and depending on the type of products you sell and your location, you may elect to stay open late on weeknights, especially Friday and Saturday, okay? You will also want to determine ahead of time at which holidays you will be open. When you you run holiday sales, or you would close early. Mother's Day, Thanksgiving, Labor Day, Memorial Day, 4th of July, that sort of thing. Set staffing levels. Next, determine how many employees are needed at a given time and whether you can give part-timers or you need one full-time staffers. Understand the law. Again, understand the law, okay? Prior to creating a schedule, you will need to familiarize again with all state employment laws, okay? Once you have your own schedule in place and have stabilized ground rules for your employees, you can create the employee schedule. To do this, you will need to have enough personnel to cover business times of the day. So when we take a look at your project, we're going to make sure that we scan your schedule and make sure you have enough coverage. Have enough personnel for sales, special promotions, and busy times of the year, such as holiday seasons. Consider who is on leave, sick leave, medical leave, disability, family, military, maternity, adoption, school leave, emergency, disaster leave. You also consider vacations and religious holidays that employees may need to take off, okay? Consider all activities that may reduce your staff at any given time. For example, if you need several students working for you, finals may mean that you lose half of your employees. I did that when I was at Langston University up in northern Oklahoma City, historical Black college. When the final was coming around, my staff was almost non-existent. I'm like, I had to hire temps. Anyways, finals maybe mean that you lose half your employees. Know ahead of time when employees are likely to need some time off. Once you write a schedule, make sure that your needs are covered with enough staff, sales staff, stock people, and cashiers. Train your employees to handle their responsibilities. If you train your employees to handle their responsibilities, you're much better positioned when one of your scheduled cashiers calls in sick. I've done that, and I've been a cashier too. Provide incentives. It also may be your best interest to provide incentives for employees who are rarely calling sick or rarely need to change their schedules. And even employers have employee of the month, employee of the quarter incentives, okay? Have backups for your schedule available. These may be part-timers with the flexibility to come in as needed. Hiring a diverse group of employees, such as a mix of students, full-time sales help. Seniors lets you cover the needs of those of your customers. If possible, set up regular routine whereby some employees work on a set schedule each week. Okay, learning how to manage.
That's very helpful, Chef. I mean, the more the schedule is a routine, as long as you got people that are happy to keep the same schedule, it's much easier to write a schedule when 10 of your 12 people don't really want to change it too much.
Yeah.
Yep.
Learning how to manage labor costs can mean the difference between success and failure. Again, if you know how to manage your labor costs, remember prime cost, 60% out of 100 is $60,000. That's a lot of money. More than 50 restaurants fail in the first year of business, and 90% of those who make it through the year number one, they'll make it through the second year. With odds like that, it's important to be proactive about keeping your labor expenses low. So go with that mentality. Make sure you have control of your costs. Ultimately, employee schedule should meet your business needs without being overly rigid. Retail owners and managers must walk a fine line to ensure that the workflow remains steady while the turnover remains slow. It takes time to train your employees, so keeping your current staff happy is part of the process. Best advice is to plan ahead. Ask your employees to do the same so that they don't find yourself suddenly short-staffed, okay? Be back here. So No homework. I got a little bit of homework for you guys. Time is up. Here we go. Okay. And you guessed it, it's another video.
Chef, I have a question. So is that when new restaurants open up, what they hire so many people because people start to weed themselves out as they go?
Yes, when new restaurants open up, they will overstaff, way overstaff. Because when you open up, what happens? Have you seen the new restaurants? Have you guys seen new restaurants when they open up? What happens?
They lose half their staff by like the first month.
Yeah, but what's the big thing what's the big important thing besides losing a lot of staff?
No, when you first open up a new restaurant, what happens to the restaurant? For your first week of you open, what happens to the place?
Depending upon how it's promoted and how excited.
There may be an influx of sales.
They can have a big, heavy night and week and month, right, guys?
Yeah.
And then it'll be so heavy and they need a lot of help. They need a lot of people, and they actually plan on spending too much labor dollars at first. They're not trying to make a big profit the first month. They're trying to make sure they got enough help and don't go falling down or failing a shift because they can't get enough people to work and so forth. Later, when they start to know what the business really looks like, they're going to start to use less help, and it's going to naturally take care of itself because some will quit and leave. Some won't like it, some will be frustrated, some of them will get disciplinary action and get fired. They really have to overstaff a little bit. And if they in a perfect world, they'd overstaff and that crew would naturally have some decline in the numbers, and it would about match the decline in sales, which almost always happens on a new place. If they open big, it'll slide down a little bit in the first few months. They expect that.
Okay, so with that in mind, I mean, what is a safe number to say you overstaff? Because again, we can't just up and fire people once we figure out what works for us, unless there's documentation. So you're saying overstaff, but is there a percentage that you're saying we should kind of, because if I know my restaurant's gonna need 10 people to operate at 100%, am I going to hire 15 people or 12 people? Because at the same time, knowing the law, I want to be within the limits where when I say, okay, I want to let you go, there is no blowback, of me, for just up and firing someone and a lawsuit.
Tia, you had sorry, Chef.
Go ahead.
I didn't have a question. It was just something that I heard a really long time ago. I used to be a travel trainer for restaurants, like opening up restaurants. And the lady told the lady that trained me, she told me that you wanted to have at least 3 people for every position if it was in the front of the house. Because by the end of orientation or by the end of training, 1 or 2 of them are going to weed themselves out. And you're going to end up with your strongest person. But you always want to have at least 1 to 2 people. You always want to have a backup for every shift is basically how she broke it down to me. Because if one called out, you want to have somebody else that can do it. And those are the people that you would just hire as part-times or per diems. Because at the restaurant that I just left, I had a lot of per diem people, but only call them when I need them because they had other jobs. And Texas is a no whatever state.
That's where you're going on that question of letting people go a little bit later, Mercedes, and most people really don't want to do that.
Yeah.
Wants to sit down with somebody off and say, well, I'm sorry, today's your last day. But Texas, restaurant operators get away with some of that because Texas is that will, for sure. That's a conversation I would have, but I'm not sure we got that question answered, Mercedes. Chef
put 50% over in the chat box, which, I mean.
It could be. So again, let me give you an example. I opened a place as a lead cook from a very well-established place. I was the guy that went out to become one of 2 cooks trainers when we opened a new, very, very busy place in a very busy location. We doubled the size of the dining room for the new location. We had a bar about 6 times bigger than we originally had. We had the same menu. We had about 4 times the kitchen. We had a 27-person kitchen. Yeah, 27 cooks plus about 12 dishwashers and what we call stewards who were runners for the dishwasher. I mean, it was a big, busy, rocking operation, and the place really did all the business they expected and more. In fact, you know, they were kind of thinking, oh, we're going to do 400 or 500 people every night. Well, heck, we wound up doing 300, 400 at lunch and 500, 600 people at night. And it was really heavy, and we had a lot of people. It was kind of chaotic, hard to supervise that many people. That almost all of them are new. So all the kind of bonkers, wacko you expect. But after a while, we started to see which nights. It was predictable too. We knew that Friday night would be heavy. We knew how many people it would be. We knew what Saturday was looking like. We learned that Saturday lunches were a little slower than we expected. So after a few weeks, didn't take more than about 3 or 4 weeks, we started to see what sales were looking like. Then it did fall down some, and a lot of people just left. They just weren't having that much fun. They didn't think the training was good enough, or they weren't cut out for a restaurant that busy, or they went back to the job that they left. You know, I'm going to go open this new place later, and in 3 weeks they were like, yeah, I think I'll come back. Can you guys let me in? So a lot of it sort of took care of itself, and the business slid downhill a little bit, and the size of the crew slid down too. It worked out pretty good. And then about 3 months after we were open, it was real steady. Costs were still jumping around a little bit. Labor cost was a little bit unpredictable. But about a year later, we had it pretty smooth, and it would be busy, steady, strong, and we did not have too many people, and the thing was starting to make money. To my mind, you start about for every 10 cooks, you'd have about 3 or 4 extras. On an opening, 2 extras is a little skimpy for 10 cooks, I think.
Okay. Now, just a caveat. Is it okay, and I just want to make sure that I'm, processing all this correctly. Is it okay in a situation like that, you hire someone full-time, can you move them to part-time? Or do they have to stay? I mean, because if you have a contract, I would imagine you would need to, but I mean, is there any?
Chef, I don't know about you. I have not seen contracts in Texas.
No.
I've seen a work agreement for executive chef job of a new retirement/Alzheimer's care. I've seen things like that as a instructor, a contract, a work agreement, but I got hired as executive chef. The place was like, here's your salary. Here's how many hours we expect. Here's your responsibilities. Here's the keys, baby. Go get it. There was not a bunch of formal contracts and stuff.
It's okay. Go ahead.
This schedule was from 08.
Since I've been in Texas, I've only seen contracts with managers, not chefs, just managers.
Right. This schedule was when I opened out the Embassy Suites in Norman, Oklahoma. Okay, take a look at the schedule. How many AM line cooks do you see? 1, 2, 3, 4, right?
Mm-hmm.
How many PM line cooks do you see? 1, 2, 3, 4, right?
5.
How many banquets you see?
8.
7, 8.
8.
Yep.
That's when I opened it up, right? This is afterwards, okay? How many banquets? How many line cooks?
Wait, it didn't change.
Didn't change, Chef.
Oh, sorry. Here we go. Change now?
No. Still 4, 5, 8.
Nope.
No?
No.
Really? Here we go.
Problems with technology.
Now I did?
Still the same, 4, 4, 8.
Yeah.
All right, let me see if I can change it, okay?
We can take your word for it, Chef. You can tell us what happened.
Now did it change?
Yes.
Okay. How many banquets you see?
What's that? 5.
Yeah.
How many did it have at the beginning?
8.
What about, let me see, how many line cooks do you see?
There's 4.
No, AM. I'm sorry, AM line cooks.
Well, you just got one category of line. There's 4
I
people.
see PM stewards.
So Marissa Barker is your AM line cook, right?
Mm-hmm.
8 to 2. How many other line cooks do you saw?
So she's the only AM line cook, and then the other 3 are PM.
Correct.
So you went from 9 total down to 4.
Bingo. Okay.
That's a big drop, right?
Yeah. So when you open up, you're going to overstop. And I say 50% because, you know, here it is. Well, more than 50%, especially in the morning. So when I opened it up, we were busy like nobody's business. But as time went by, business dropped. So you're not firing them. You're eliminating the position. You're not getting in trouble for a lawsuit.
Okay.
Okay. As business drops, then you come to a point where you no longer need them because you cannot afford to sustain them. So the way to handle it is, you know, I'm sorry, but we're eliminating your position.
Okay.
One more thing I can add on that, guys, is that would be for what we call a hard opening. And a hard opening is promotion, awareness in the community, maybe a few giveaways, signage, a news release or 2. Maybe the chef appears on a couple of morning programs, a time or 2, whatever. And when the doors open, everybody knows about it, and it is bang, and it's really heavy and hard. The cooks have to be trained up and kind of wired up and really kind of pumped for the whole thing. It's heavy, it's hard, some mistakes happen. It gets kind of hectic. You're asking for the patience of your customers. They probably know it's going to be a little bit bumpy, but you start with a lot of sales, which covers a lot of tracks and pays for mistakes and broken equipment and food made wrong and stuff like that. And it's one way to open a restaurant, and some people don't believe in it. Some people believe in doing a soft opening, which is, have a plan on having a lot of people, but your first 3 shifts, you only, you let in only a certain number of them, and you might even give them the meal free or half price, but you give them tickets for what they're going to eat. And if, like, I give you a ticket for a fish and somebody else at the table gets a ticket for a chicken, and you want chicken, they want fish, you can trade. But now we know
like
exactly.
Rocco did when he opened his restaurant.
Exactly.
Right. And that can work. I'm not going to speak for Rocco, but that can be pretty slick, right? And that way we know exactly, hey, we only put out 225 tickets for chicken. We put out 175 for fish. We'll put about 160 out for prime rib, whatever it's going to be, and you control it. And then you don't have 1,000 people your first night. You have 300-400. Maybe it's 100 the first night, second night 500-600, third night up to 500-600, something like that. And then your fourth night is maybe your first real night. Maybe it's a Sunday, right? You really controlled it hard on Thursday and Friday and Saturday. Now it's Sunday. You're actually going to open, and they can order anything they want, but you know it's not your heaviest night. And so by that time, your cooks have had some practice. You got your moves down. You made a lot of your boo-boos. So that's what we call like a soft opening. And I would even say there's one more. And that was mine when I did my own. I never really made a name for it, but I just called it a quiet opening. I call it a quiet opening. My landlady knew, and her family, and a few friends, and a few folks that worked close by and stuff like that. And I told them when I was opening, I didn't have any advertising. I didn't put a big nothing out on the sign. And I just opened with myself and one person cashiering. And we did about 10 people, 20 people, 30, 40. A month and a half later, I was growing and growing and growing. And pretty quick, I'm seeing 100 people, 150 people. But I didn't have that huge splash, and I didn't have to have a whole bunch of people and start letting them go. It was rather than start big and go down, it was start small and build it up. And I would do that again today in certain kinds of places.
Okay.
So makes sense. As you see here, there was 4 of us in the manager section. Right? It was me, my executive sous, my sous chef, and my banquet sous chef. In the line cooks, I had them separate. I had 1, 2, 3, 4 a.m.s, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 p.m.s.
5 p.m.s.
So I eliminated that sous chef position. Unfortunately, I had to let him go, and I eliminated at least half or a little bit more, over than 50% of my schedule went to 1 a.m. line cook. It only kept 3 at night. So yes, 50% is adequate enough for you to open up, and then within the next 1 or 2 months, your business is going to drop because you're no longer the new kid on the block. People are going to come in, they're going to eat, they're going to go on back to the normal places because they want to try out the new toy in town, and then your business is going to drop, and you start eliminating those spots. Okay.
Okay.
So 50%, it's pretty much within range. Okay.
All right, Jeff. Thank you.
Super cool. Good question, Mallory. Mercedes, sorry. Good question. Thank you.
Yeah.
Oh, yes, Chef. Thank you.
Any questions? Oops.
I do have more questions. I'm sorry. And this is over the project. I just want to know how much help are we going to have, because I still feel like I have a lot of questions. Like I'm starting to work on costing out everything. So how much feedback are you guys willing to give us? I want to know up to what point, because I'm going to take all the help I can get to make sure that it is as perfect as it can be. So up to what point are you guys going to say, okay, that's enough?
There's no limited amount of feedback, no limited amount of help.
Say less.
If I was you guys, this is the end of week 3. Really, if I was you guys, I'll start working on my menu over the weekend. Trying to get that narrowed down as soon as possible. And if you guys will like, we can dedicate one day next week and go over your menus and then give you guys some feedback. And then for you guys to go back and fix them. So when you guys submit your project, it's golden. Not something halfway done, not something that is misspelled, something that is actually going to be a restaurant. And that'll be the first phase. Second phase is your recipe cost cards. That is going to be your biggest challenge, costing everything out. And there's no amount of, we're not going to say that's enough help. No. We are here for you guys. We're here until you guys get everything done to a T, everything possibly done. And you guys are going to get our feedback, unlimited amount of resources, if all possible. Okay.
Yeah, I was still waiting on the feedback from the menu.
Sorry?
Said I was still waiting on feedback from the menu. I did beginning of the week.
Yeah, we haven't
Yeah,
got.
Daniel, I'll look at that in the morning. First thing. I'm too bleary right now.
Mercedes, just to say something real quick. I can attest to them helping like nonstop, because like I constantly ask them questions, whether it's during class or like weekly. I'll either share it with them, share the most updated menu I have with them, and they're always, well, this is what you can do better. Here's how I would price this, or stuff like that. So there is no limit. Yeah, no limits.
Well, when it starts being 5 of people hitting us at one time, you could see a little bit less quick response, but we're going to do our best, right? Yeah.
So here it is, guys. Okay, this is your homework. I put in the chat box. I'm going to share the link.
Okay.
On the chat box as well too. Okay. So for this one, I am asking for written feedback on it. Okay.
Okay.
So it is written feedback all across the board. Okay. I'm going to start recording in a few minutes, but I'm going to actually I should record now. Load it up over the weekend, and then put it up on the portal so you guys can watch it. If you guys have any questions to ask, okay?
Yep.
So again, written feedback. I know this guy's making a funny face. So there it is. That's your homework for the weekend. Got it, guys?